In a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control, where each day brings its own set of challenges and the pursuit of happiness seems like a never-ending marathon, there lies an ancient philosophy that offers a starkly different approach. Stoicism, a school of philosophy dating back to ancient Greece, provides a roadmap for navigating life with grace, resilience, and profound inner peace. Today we delve into this philosophy not as distant scholars, but as modern individuals seeking a guide to effortless living in a world that is anything but. Let's begin by addressing a common misconception, the idea that to achieve anything worthwhile, one must struggle, push, and constantly exert force. Stoicism invites us to consider a different approach, one that emphasizes the power of letting things happen naturally. It's about understanding that there is a flow to life, an undercurrent that, if we learn to navigate it skillfully, can lead to outcomes more remarkable than any forceful effort could ever produce. It's about learning the art of non-resistance, of aligning with the natural course of events rather than struggling against them. This isn't a call to passivity, but an invitation to a more intelligent, attuned way of interacting with the world. Now consider the concept of kindness, a virtue extolled by many as the key to a fulfilling life. But is it possible that there's a dark side to kindness? That in our pursuit to be good to others, we might inadvertently pave the way to our own ruin? This is not an argument against kindness, but rather a nuanced exploration of how, when misapplied, it can lead to unintended consequences. It's about striking a balance between generosity and self-preservation, about understanding the complex dynamics of human interaction, where kindness, without wisdom, can lead to self-detriment. Next, let's talk about the foundations of a life well lived. Stoicism isn't just about big ideas, it's equally about the small daily practices that cumulatively shape our existence. What are the things one should do every day to live a life in harmony with Stoic principles? It's about identifying and integrating daily habits that foster inner strength, clarity of mind, and emotional resilience. These practices aren't grandiose gestures, but simple, consistent actions that align us with the core tenets of Stoicism, virtue, wisdom, and a deep understanding of what's within our control and what's not. Finally, let's explore the concept of an undefeated mind. In a world where uncertainty is the only certainty, how does one cultivate a mental state that is unshakable, regardless of external circumstances? Drawing on the teachings of Seneca, we uncover principles that fortify the mind against life's inevitable adversities. This isn't about denying the challenges or painting a veneer of false positivity over life's complexities. It's about developing a mindset that sees every challenge as an opportunity for growth, every setback as a lesson, and every success as a chance for gratitude. As we journey through these ideas, we're not just passively absorbing ancient wisdom, we're actively engaging with it, molding it to fit our contemporary lives. Stoicism, in its essence, isn't a rigid doctrine but a living philosophy, one that adapts and evolves as our understanding deepens and our experiences broaden. In this exploration, we'll discover that effortless living doesn't imply a life without effort. Rather, it's about the effort that's in harmony with our nature, our circumstances, and the natural order of the world. It's about finding ease in action, peace in chaos, and strength in vulnerability. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is to accept, adapt, and move forward with wisdom and courage. So, as we embark on this journey, let's do so with open minds and hearts. Let's be willing to challenge our preconceptions, to question, to learn, and to grow. Let's embrace the Stoic way not just as a philosophy of the past, but as a living guide to a life of depth, meaning, and tranquility. Welcome to a Stoic Guide to Effortless Living, a journey to rediscovering the art of living well in a world that is constantly changing. Have you ever pushed a door marked pull, and for a frustrating moment, found yourself stuck outside looking in? In that brief second, you're at odds with the very mechanics of how things work. Now imagine if that wasn't just a door, but your approach to life. The world we live in today praises the go-getters, the shakers, the ones who make things happen. But what if I told you that the secret to inner peace and outer success doesn't lie in the force of effort, but in the graceful art of letting things unfold? This isn't about inaction, it's about a strategic effort, the kind that aligns with the rhythm of the universe rather than scrambling against it. At first glance, this might sound like a call to passive existence, an invitation to drift aimlessly on the tides of fate. But as we'll see, there is a profound strength in understanding the difference between effort and force, between taking action and trying to control the uncontrollable. This is the Stoic perspective, a philosophy that has stood the test of millennia, still as relevant now as it was in the days of the Roman Empire. But who were these Stoics, and what have they taught us about effort and force? Stoicism is not merely a set of doctrines but a way of life, a blueprint for living in harmony with nature's laws and our own inner virtues. The Stoics, including great minds like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, were not concerned with academic debates but with practical wisdom. They believed in the power of reason, the importance of virtue, and the acceptance of fate. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who by day led legions and governed an empire, and by night penned reflections that would become immortalized in his meditations. He writes, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless it is to effect some good for them. No, rather, while there is still time, go within and weigh up your own measure." Here, in the quiet recesses of his thoughts, Marcus Aurelius reminds us of the futility of trying to force our will upon the world. Instead, he invites us to turn inward, to cultivate our character, and to let our efforts flow from a place of inner alignment with nature's course. Or take Seneca, the statesman and philosopher, who observed the ebb and flow of fortune with the keen eye of a scholar and the heart of a poet. He mused, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant," encapsulating the essence of our topic today. What a striking image, that of life's currents, either gently guiding us or forcefully pulling us along. Seneca's words encourage us to discern when to exert effort and when to yield, to understand that there is a time to row with all our might, and a time to raise our oars and let the river carry us forward. This distinction between effort and force is critical. Effort is aligned with purpose and direction. It's rowing downstream, moving with the current of our own nature and the nature of the world. Force, on the other hand, is rowing against the tide, exhausting ourselves in the vain attempt to bend the river to our will. The former is rooted in wisdom and strength, the latter in a misunderstanding of our place within the grand tapestry of existence. But how does one distinguish between the two? How do we know when to strive and when to surrender? This is the crux of our exploration today. It's about understanding the signs of force, the tension in our bodies, the frustration in our minds, the sense of fighting an uphill battle against the relentless forces of life. It's also about recognizing the signs of true effort, the feeling of being in the zone, the satisfaction of doing our best without attachment to the outcome, the peace that comes with knowing we have acted with virtue, regardless of the results. To truly grasp this concept, we must immerse ourselves in the natural flow of life. We'll examine how the Stoics lived by this flow, how they embraced destiny while also exercising their will, how they took action without becoming ensnared by the fruits of their actions. We'll explore the balance they struck between shaping their lives and accepting life's unfolding narrative. We'll look at modern examples too, because this isn't just an ancient philosophy to be admired from afar. It's a living, breathing guide that can influence how we lead our lives today. How do we set goals in a way that's grounded in the art of allowing? How do we pursue relationships without clinging too tightly to our expectations? How do we advance in our careers without becoming consumed by ambition? Our exploration will take us through these questions and beyond. We'll dig into practical steps to integrate the Stoic art of allowing into our daily lives. We'll talk about recognizing what is and isn't within our control, about the joy that comes from aligning with the natural course of events, and about the liberation in letting go of the compulsion to force life to conform to our will. In the words of Epictetus, "No great thing is created suddenly. This wisdom is our compass as we navigate the space between action and inaction, between making things happen and letting them happen." It's a reminder that the most profound changes in our lives and in ourselves often come not from the force of our will, but from the patience of our effort. Venturing further into the essence of our narrative, we confront the concept of forcing things. To force is to push against the natural rhythm of events and experiences with a kind of blind determination that often ignores the realities at play. It is an attempt to impose our will, to control outcomes, and to manipulate the path of life so that it conforms to our personal goals and desires. This endeavor, while rooted in the pursuit of success, often leads us astray from the path of wisdom. Imagine standing at the river's edge. Your objective lies on the opposite bank. Forcing things would be akin to plunging into the water, swimming against the current, expending energy with every stroke, fighting the river every step of the way. It is possible that you might reach the other side, but at what cost? Your strength is depleted, your spirit wearied, and you are left wondering if there might have been a better way, a bridge, a boat, or a smoother passage downstream. Now let's turn our gaze inward to the psychological and emotional landscapes within us. When we force things, what occurs in the realm of our minds and hearts? There is a tightness, a constriction that comes with trying to control the uncontrollable. It manifests as stress, the body's alarm system, signaling that something is not right. Anxiety follows, a sense of dread that shadows our every move, whispering of all that could go wrong. And if left unchecked, this state of constant strain leads to burnout, a deep and profound exhaustion that dims the light of our spirit and the sharpness of our intellect. In our society, where the cult of achievement reigns supreme, these symptoms are often worn as badges of honor. Long hours, sleepless nights, and unyielding pressure are heralded as the hallmarks of dedication. Yet, this is a misunderstanding of what true dedication and achievement entail. The Stoics would look upon this and shake their heads, for they understood that working against nature, both the nature of the world and our own nature, is folly. The Stoic virtue lies in working with nature, not against it. It is in recognizing the flow of the cosmos and aligning ourselves with it. This does not mean we abandon our goals or relinquish our dreams. Rather, we pursue them with an understanding of the appropriate means and timing. It is to know when to plant and when to harvest, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait. Stoicism teaches us to apply our efforts wisely, to exert our energies in harmony with the cycles of change and growth. It counsels us to focus on our own actions and attitudes, the true areas where we possess power. This is not a passive resignation, but an active engagement with life, tempered by the wisdom to accept what we cannot change. To work with nature, one must understand it, and this begins with self-knowledge. The Stoic practice of self-examination, reflecting on one's thoughts, emotions, and actions, is a tool for this purpose. It helps us identify when we are pushing too hard, when we are being driven by fear, pride, or desire rather than reason and virtue. Consider the farmer who understands the seasons. He does not plant in winter, not because he is idle, but because he knows the land must rest and that seeds grow best when sown at the right time. In our lives, just like the farmer, we must discern our seasons, read the signs of our internal and external environments, and act accordingly. There is grace in patience, in allowing things to develop in their own time. The oak tree does not rush to tower above the forest. It grows steadily year by year, in accordance with the inherent pattern embedded within its acorn heart. So too must our ambitions and efforts unfold according to the pattern of who we are and the circumstances we inhabit. This brings us to the realm of our practical lives, where each day presents countless opportunities to choose between forcing and flowing. It is in the projects we undertake at work, the relationships we nurture, the personal goals we set for health, learning, and growth. To approach these endeavors from a Stoic perspective is to engage with them wholeheartedly, applying our talents and energies, but with a mind open to the outcomes, whatever they may be. To practice this art, we must be vigilant, constantly monitoring our inner state for the tension of force. We must be courageous, willing to let go when we find ourselves gripping too tightly to a predetermined outcome. And we must be compassionate, granting ourselves the kindness to stumble, to learn, and to grow without the harshness of self-imposed demands. As we advance in this discussion, remember the wisdom of the Stoics, to live in agreement with nature. This is not the path of least resistance, it is the path of true resistance, the kind that shapes stones and carves canyons, the resistance that, through patience and persistence, aligns with the forces of life to create enduring beauty and strength. This is the resistance that understands the power of water flowing over rock, the steady and gentle insistence that, over time, reshapes even the hardest of obstacles. In seeking further comprehension of the Stoic philosophy, one must traverse the realms of history, uncovering the roots that have nourished this enduring wisdom. The ancient Stoics perceived the world as an interconnected web, governed by a divine reason they termed logos. Within this cosmic fabric, they believed that the only true control we possess is over our faculties of judgment and action, while all else lies outside our domain in the hands of fate or providence. This understanding shaped their approach to life, embracing what occurs with equanimity and focusing their efforts on personal virtue and wisdom. The Stoics did not advocate for passivity, rather they called for an active participation in life, tempered with the acceptance that outcomes are not ours to dictate. This balance between control and acceptance is the golden thread woven through the tapestry of Stoic thought. One of the most compelling historical anecdotes illustrating this Stoic acceptance is the tale of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism. Legend has it that Zeno was a prosperous merchant until a shipwreck near Athens stripped him of his wealth. It was this twist of fate that led him to the Stoic philosophy, studying under crates of Thebes, and eventually developing his philosophical system that espoused inner peace through the acceptance of fate. The shipwreck that could have been perceived as a catastrophic event became the catalyst for Zeno's philosophical enlightenment. It's an exemplar of the Stoic attitude, transforming misfortune into opportunity, perceiving obstacles as the raw material for growth. Zeno's loss of external possessions led him to discover the internal wealth of wisdom, virtue, and tranquility. Let's fast forward to the present day and consider the applicability of these historical lessons in our modern context. Today, we navigate a world of unprecedented complexity and change, where the illusion of control is amplified by technology and the pace of innovation. Yet, the essence of what we can truly govern remains unchanged: our thoughts, our choices, and our reactions. The modern allure of control can be seen in the countless tools and systems designed to optimize every aspect of our lives, from sleep to productivity. We schedule, we plan, we track, often forgetting that despite our best efforts, life has a way of unfolding in unexpected patterns. The Stoic teachings remind us that it is not the plan itself, but our attachment to the plan that often leads to turmoil. In the contemporary sphere of influence, from business leaders to sports coaches, the Stoic principle of focusing on the process rather than the outcome has been celebrated and adopted. It is recognized that excellence results from the quality of our actions, not from the anxious preoccupation with results. By applying Stoic wisdom, we learn to invest our energy in the present task with full commitment, leaving the results to unfold as they will. The narrative of the Stoic acceptance of fate is also visible in the stories of many historical figures, who, despite facing adversity, channeled their experiences into positive change. In our own lives, the relevance of Stoicism is equally profound. We encounter daily challenges and obstacles, some minor and some life-altering. The Stoic practice of differentiating between what we can control and what we must accept helps us navigate these trials with a steadier heart and a clearer mind. It encourages us to focus our efforts on our response, our integrity, and our purpose, rather than on the capricious elements of chance and circumstance. Moreover, Stoicism provides a moral compass in an age often characterized by moral relativism. It offers a framework for personal development that emphasizes character over fame, virtue over success, and wisdom over knowledge. By applying these principles, we anchor ourselves in a philosophy that values the content of our character above the contingencies of our lives. In times of crisis, whether personal or collective, the Stoic teachings shine brightly as beacons of resilience. The Stoic virtue of courage is not about the absence of fear, but about the ability to persist despite fear. It is about facing a world in flux with a soul rooted in the bedrock of virtue, ready to adapt, to accept, and to overcome. Thus, the Stoic wisdom of allowing things to happen, of acknowledging the role of fate while committing to virtuous action, is not a relic of the past, but a living, breathing guide for the present. It invites us into a dance with destiny, where we lead with our virtues, follow with our acceptance, and create a harmony that echoes the Stoic sages of old. This harmony, timeless and profound, reminds us that within the chaos of life's currents, we possess the power to cultivate an inner sanctuary of peace and strength. As we move through the chronicles of history, from Zeno's shipwreck to the trials and triumphs of our own times, the Stoic philosophy remains a steadfast friend. It does not call us to shrink from life's battles, but to engage with them more wisely, with the steadiness of heart and the serenity of a mind attuned to the wisdom of ages. Through the lens of Stoicism, we learn that the art of letting things happen is not about surrender, but about a deeper conquest, the conquest of self-mastery, of virtue, and of a life lived in harmonious accord with the world's unfolding song. Delving into the rich fabric of Stoic wisdom, we arrive at a pivotal juncture, the philosophy of action without force. This is not an admonition against action itself, but rather against the attachment to the fruits of our actions. It's a delicate balancing act, one that requires us to engage with the world fully, exerting ourselves in the pursuits we deem worthy, while simultaneously releasing our grip on the expectations of what these pursuits should yield. In the Stoic view, action is essential. We are participants in the tapestry of life, and our choices, our movements, are the threads by which we contribute to the ever-evolving picture. Yet, Stoics distinguish sharply between taking action, which is under our control, and forcing an outcome, which is not. We are encouraged to pour our efforts into the former, and to cultivate a graceful detachment from the latter. When we take action, we are active agents, moving with intention and purpose. We are planting seeds of effort, care, and skill. But once planted, the growth of these seeds, the outcomes, are subject to innumerable factors beyond our ken: the weather, the soil's fertility, the passing of time. To force an outcome is to stand over the seedlings, pulling at them, demanding that they grow faster, taller, stronger. It's not only futile, it's likely to damage the very growth we seek to foster. This concept might be crystallized in the image of an archer from Stoic texts. The archer pulls back the string, aims with concentration, and releases the arrow. His job is done in the moment of release, where the arrow lands is no longer in his hands. It may be swayed by the wind, it may strike a moving target, or it may fall short. The archer's tranquility lies in his skillful action, not in the pride or disappointment of the arrow's flight. Stoicism, in its embrace of action without attachment to the outcome, finds an intriguing parallel in the Eastern philosophy of Taoism, particularly in the concept of Wu Wei. Translated as non-doing or effortless action, Wu Wei is the art of flowing with life's natural currents. It is acting in accordance with the Tao, the way of the universe, which moves effortlessly and spontaneously. It doesn't mean not acting at all. Rather, it implies action that does not involve struggle or excessive effort. Wu Wei is about alignment with the rhythms of nature, about understanding when to act and when to remain still, when to exert force and when to yield. This is not a resignation from action, but an invitation to a higher form of engagement, one that is intuitive, harmonious, and in tune with the essence of the world around us. Just as a tree doesn't strain to grow, but does so naturally, Wu Wei teaches us to apply our energies where they will be most effective and to refrain from wasteful expenditures of force. It's an acknowledgement that the universe has its flow, its own intricate patterns and wisdom, and that our true power lies in becoming attuned to these, moving with them rather than against them. Drawing on Wu Wei, we can learn to recognize the difference between taking action and trying to force an outcome. Taking action is planting the tree, watering it, tending to it with care. Forcing an outcome is the anxiety that comes from watching the tree every day, worrying about its growth, being attached to how and when it will bear fruit. In our personal lives, this might translate to doing our best at our jobs, in our relationships, and in our self-development, without becoming attached to how these efforts will be received or what they will produce. This detachment doesn't diminish the quality of our action. In fact, it might enhance it. When we are not fixated on outcomes, we can be more present, more attentive, and more aligned with the task at hand. The resonance between Stoicism and Taoism in this aspect is profound. Both philosophies counsel us to let go of the need to control and to trust in the process of life. They remind us that there is a wisdom to the unfolding of events that we, with our limited perspective, cannot fully comprehend, and so they teach us to act with integrity, do our part, and then step back, allowing the world to do its own. These philosophical threads converge on a simple yet powerful truth: that peace comes not from controlling the outcomes of our actions, but from knowing that we have acted rightly to the best of our ability and with good intent. This is the heart of action without force, a heart that beats steadily, calmly, resonating with the timeless wisdom that has guided countless souls through the tumults of history. In applying these principles to our contemporary lives, we find a pathway to a more serene and effective existence. We learn to distinguish between the healthy exertion of effort and the unhealthy obsession with control. We learn to set goals, to strive, and to let go. And in this letting go, we find a new kind of strength, the strength of adaptability, of resilience, and of a deep, abiding harmony with the way things are. It is here, in the union of Stoic resolve and Taoist fluidity, that we discover the art of action without force, a dance with life that is as powerful as it is peaceful, as productive as it is liberating. The Stoic teachings offer profound lessons on the art of letting go, providing us with a guide to living a life that is both purposeful and tranquil. Let's explore in greater depth how the Stoic wisdom can be applied to our modern lives. Epictetus provides a fundamental Stoic lesson, the distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. This discernment is the bedrock of Stoic peace of mind. Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, understanding and embracing this dichotomy can be transformative. Imagine living with the constant recognition that our efforts are best placed on our inner world, the realm of our own decisions, judgments, and reactions. This is where true agency lies. By accepting this, we can conserve our energy, no longer dissipating it in futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. It's like sailing. A skilled sailor doesn't waste time lamenting the direction of the wind, but instead adjusts the sails and steers accordingly. In practical terms, this means focusing on our responses to situations, not the situations themselves. It's about preparing ourselves for the various outcomes of our actions, understanding that success is not in the achievement itself, but in the effort well applied. When we apply this in our lives, we begin to let go of the frustration that comes with disrupted plans and unforeseen obstacles, and we start to move through life with a steadier, more resilient pace. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, takes this concept further with the doctrine of amor fati, love of one's fate. This profound acceptance goes beyond mere endurance. It's a joyous embrace of all that life offers, both the triumphs and the tragedies. What if we welcomed everything that happened to us as if we had chosen it ourselves? It's a radical shift in perspective, turning every moment into something of value, an opportunity for growth and reflection. This doesn't mean being passive or resigned to suffering. It means seeing the potential in whatever occurs. Marcus's insights can lead us to find beauty in the inevitable cycles of life. He encourages us to look at the whole of which we are a part, to understand our place within the greater order of things. This broader view can free us from the myopia that magnifies our troubles and blinds us to the possibilities contained within them. In embracing our fate, we are not giving up on making things better. Instead, we're committing to move forward with a kind of optimistic pragmatism. It's the practice of taking each moment as it comes and infusing it with our best selves, not because it guarantees a certain outcome, but because it is the most authentic way to live. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. Seneca's musings on time provide a vital Stoic lesson on the importance of prioritization and focus. He prompts us to consider the scarcity of time and the folly of wasting it on the inconsequential. His admonitions against the squandering of time are a call to action for mindful living. We live in an era filled with distractions, where our attention is a currency in high demand. Seneca's advice takes on new meaning when we consider how modern technologies can lead us to inadvertently waste vast amounts of this precious resource. What would it look like if we applied his wisdom today? It would mean a conscientious effort to let go of the trivial, the endless scroll through social media, the preoccupation with the lives of others, the worry over things beyond our control. Instead, we can choose to use our time in pursuits that enrich our souls and better our world. This could involve deepening our relationships, cultivating our talents, or contributing to our communities. It's a call to let go of the superficial and to engage deeply with the essence of life. The Stoic practice of letting go is not about disengagement from the world. Rather, it is about engaging with it more meaningfully. It is not about indifference, but about discernment, the ability to differentiate between what truly matters and what doesn't. It is not about the absence of action, but about purposeful action guided by wisdom. By internalizing the lessons of these Stoic philosophers, we learn to let go of the illusion of control, the resistance to our reality, and the distractions that sap our time. In their place, we cultivate acceptance, purpose, and focus, enriching our lives and allowing us to navigate the world with grace and equanimity. In doing so, we honor the Stoic legacy, turning their timeless wisdom into a living practice that continues to resonate across the ages. Incorporating the philosophy of non-force into the minutiae of daily life is akin to learning a new language, the language of deliberate calmness and measured response. It is a subtle art that requires practice, patience, and a conscious recalibration of our habitual reactions. We will traverse practical strategies that weave the threads of non-force into the fabric of everyday existence, allowing its philosophy to permeate our actions and interactions. First, let us consider the morning ritual, a daily tableau for setting the tone. Instead of leaping into the day with a frenzy of activity, we might begin with a moment of stillness. This could be a short meditation, a few minutes of deep breathing, or simply sitting with a cup of tea, anchoring ourselves in the present. The objective is to cultivate a space where we can acknowledge the day's potential without the compulsion to steer it forcibly. Moving into the day, one might adopt the practice of mindful pauses. Before commencing a new task, entering a meeting, or even responding to an email, we take a brief pause to assess our state of being. Are we acting out of compulsion or choice? Are we about to force an outcome, or are we prepared to do our best and let the results unfold? These mindful pauses become checkpoints that reinforce the discipline of non-forcing. Another exercise lies in the realm of communication. When engaging in conversation, we can practice active listening, giving space to the other person's words and resisting the urge to impose our narrative or desired conclusion. This creates a dynamic where dialogue flows naturally, without the coercion of preconceived agendas. To build the discipline of non-forcing, we can also engage in reflection at the end of each day. A journal can serve as a powerful tool here, allowing us to revisit our actions and attitudes. Did we push too hard in any situation? Could we have approached a problem with a lighter touch? This reflection is not about self-reproach, but about learning and recalibrating for the days ahead. In terms of habits, we might cultivate the art of strategic yielding. This involves recognizing moments when resistance is less effective than flexibility. Like the willow tree that bends in the storm but does not break, strategic yielding is about identifying the strength in adaptability. This could mean deferring a decision when emotions are high, yielding the floor in a debate to gather more information, or simply opting to take a walk when a work problem seems insurmountable. Furthermore, we can embrace practices that encourage a letting go mindset, such as yoga or tai chi, which synchronize movement and breath, teaching us to move with intention but without unnecessary tension. The physical act of releasing tension in the body can be a metaphor for releasing psychological tension and the need to control. Now, let us turn our attention to the balancing act of effort with surrender. It is a dance between doing and being, exerting and resting. The key lies in our focus. When we concentrate on the process, the doing, rather than the outcome, we find a rhythm that honors both effort and ease. We work wholeheartedly, yet we remain inwardly detached from the fruits of our work. In practice, this might look like setting goals and working toward them with dedication, but regularly reminding ourselves of the larger context. Our worth is not defined by our successes or failures. It could also involve setting boundaries around our work, acknowledging that rest and recuperation are as vital as the work itself. Moreover, in the ebb and flow of professional life, we can apply the principle of non-force by being discerning about our battles. Not every situation requires our intervention. Sometimes the most strategic move is to step back and allow situations to resolve themselves, conserving our energy for matters where we can truly make a difference. To marry the notion of effort with surrender, we can adopt a twofold approach: proactive patience and reactive resilience. Proactive patience is the effort put forth in planning, preparation, and execution, coupled with the patience to let events unfold at their own pace. Reactive resilience is the capacity to bounce back from unexpected outcomes, using them as opportunities for growth rather than reasons for despair. The integration of non-force into our daily lives is not an abandonment of action or ambition. It is instead a more sophisticated engagement with both. It calls us to act with intention, guided by wisdom rather than whim, influenced by purpose rather than impatience. As we embody these practices, the philosophy of non-force transcends concept and becomes lived experience, a serene confluence of effort and surrender that shapes a life of depth, balance, and fulfillment. As we reach the conclusion of our journey together through the philosophy of non-force and the art of letting things happen, let us take a moment to reflect on the ground we've covered. We embarked on this voyage guided by the wisdom of the Stoics, learning to discern between effort and force, understanding that while we can plant seeds with intention, the blossoming occurs not at our command but in its own time and way. We recognize the telltale signs of forcing, stress, anxiety, and burnout, and contrasted these with the serene strength that comes from working in harmony with nature's rhythms. Our exploration took us through history, walking in the footsteps of Zeno and other Stoics who exemplified the virtue of acceptance in the face of life's unpredictable tempests. We considered the lessons from their experiences and the modern-day relevance of an unforced approach to life's challenges. The concept of Wu Wei from Taoism entered our conversation, enriching our understanding of action without attachment, and we found common ground between these ancient philosophies, realizing that effort can be exerted without the tension of force. We delved into the psychological effects of letting go, appreciating the mental health benefits that unfold when we cease to strain against the current of existence. We discussed how letting go has the power to reduce stress and improve our overall well-being, with research and personal anecdotes bolstering this transformative perspective. In the realm of practical application, we provided tools for integrating non-force into daily life. We spoke of mindful pauses, reflective journaling, the practice of active listening, and the cultivation of strategic yielding. we examined the intricate dance between effort and surrender, encouraging a focus on the process over the outcome, proactive patience, and reactive resilience. And now, as we wrap up our dialogue, it's my hope that you feel inspired to practice the art of letting things happen. The path is laid out before you, not as a rigid track to be followed with forceful strides, but as a meandering trail to be walked with a sense of wonder and openness. Each step is an opportunity to apply the principles we've discussed, to experiment with the space between action and allow, and to discover the liberating power that comes from an inner posture of release. As you go forth, remember that this is not a call to passivity, but an invitation to a more profound engagement with life. It is about aligning with the flow of events, rather than colliding with them. It is the art of shaping without forcing, of influencing without overpowering, and of living with a deep and abiding sense of peace that comes from the recognition that, while we play our part, the universe has its rhythms, and wisdom lies in moving with them, not against them. Embrace this art of letting things happen and watch as your life transforms, not because you exerted force upon it, but because you allowed it to unfold in its own beautiful, unpredictable, and perfect pattern. Imagine, if you will, a world where every action, every deed, and every intention is fueled by pure, unadulterated kindness. It's a utopia, right? Where benevolence reigns supreme and every face you meet beams with warmth and compassion. It's an appealing image, one that seems almost surreal in the hustle and bustle of our modern world. But here's a radical thought. What if this overwhelming kindness, unchecked and unbounded, was the very thing that crumbled the foundations of this paradise? Kindness, in its essence, is a universally valued virtue. Think back to the earliest stories passed down through generations, fables from every corner of the world, and the age-old wisdom of renowned philosophers. They all sang praises of kindness, recognizing its transformative power. These stories tell of heroes and heroines who, with their unwavering kindness, conquered adversities, united tribes, and spread love. And even today, in the cacophony of our divisive times, kindness stands tall as the one virtue that everyone, regardless of race, religion, or region, can agree upon. Yet, for all its glory and grandeur, there's an aspect of kindness that isn't talked about often. A side that, while shadowed by its overwhelming positives, can be detrimental when left unchecked. It's the side that can unintentionally lead us down a path of self-destruction, making us question our worth and tarnish our very spirit. This brings us to the core purpose of today's video. While our intentions with kindness are always in the right place, there are times and instances where its application can go awry. Just like how too much water can drown a plant, excessive or misplaced kindness can drown our spirit, leaving us feeling depleted, used, or lost. It sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? How can something so inherently good become potentially harmful? That's exactly what we're delving into today. We will explore those shadowed alleys where kindness, when not practiced with wisdom and discernment, can become counterproductive. Not to instill fear, but to foster awareness. For with awareness comes the power to balance, to differentiate, and to truly practice kindness in its most genuine, effective, and sustainable form. To many, this exploration might seem unconventional, even controversial. After all, we live in a world that constantly urges us to be kind at every juncture. Social media platforms are flooded with heartwarming stories of random acts of kindness. Businesses integrate kindness into their branding strategies, and educational institutions incorporate it into their curricula. But in this sea of always be kind mantras, it's easy to lose sight of the nuances that come with it. As we venture into this thought-provoking journey, I invite you to keep an open mind, to reflect on your personal experiences, and to engage in a dialogue not just with me, but with yourself. For at the end of the day, our shared goal is personal growth and a deeper understanding of this complex, multifaceted virtue we call kindness. Let's embark on this journey together, shedding light on the 7 ways kindness, if unchecked, could potentially ruin your life, and more importantly, how to avoid these pitfalls. Remember, it's not about diminishing the act of kindness, but rather refining it, so it remains the powerful, positive force we know and love. The good intentions behind people-pleasing. We've all been there at some point or another. A friend asks for a favor when we're already stretched thin. A coworker seeks help on a project during our personal time, or a family member requests our presence at an event when we're mentally exhausted. Despite the internal conflict, our instinctive response is a resounding yes. After all, what's a little inconvenience if it brings joy or relief to someone we care about? This is the essence of people-pleasing, the persistent desire to accommodate others, even if it comes at a personal cost. On the surface, people-pleasing appears as an admirable trait. It's a testament to a person's kindness, willingness, and selflessness. Society often lauds the individuals who go the extra mile, praising their sacrifices as they juggle countless tasks, favors, and commitments. But beneath this veneer of commendation lies a deeper, more intricate web of emotions and consequences that many fail to recognize until they're deeply entangled. The domino effect of unchecked people-pleasing. The consistent act of putting others before oneself, while rooted in good intentions, can have a domino effect on an individual's well-being. The first tile to fall is often the physical and mental toll it takes. A yes here and there can quickly snowball, leading to overextension. The late nights, the missed self-care routines, the constant juggling, it all accumulates. Before one realizes, burnout sets in. The signs can be subtle: persistent fatigue, mood swings, and a growing sense of detachment from one's passions and hobbies. But burnout is just the beginning. As one continues to prioritize others, resentment starts brewing. It's a natural, albeit uncomfortable, emotion that emerges when personal boundaries are persistently crossed. The mind begins to wonder, why am I always the one making sacrifices? Or does anyone recognize the efforts I put in? This resentment, if left unchecked, can strain relationships, ironically defeating the purpose of people-pleasing in the first place. Perhaps the most profound casualty of unchecked people-pleasing, however, is the loss of personal identity. When one is constantly molding themselves to fit the needs, desires, and expectations of others, they start losing touch with who they truly are. Interests become aligned with those of peers. Opinions sway based on popular consensus. And over time, the line between the individual's authentic self and the people-pleaser persona blurs. Recognizing the potential pitfalls of excessive people-pleasing is the first step towards reclaiming one's autonomy. But understanding the problem is only half the battle. Implementing solutions is where the real challenge lies. The primary weapon in one's arsenal against unchecked people-pleasing is setting healthy boundaries. It's essential to remember that boundaries aren't barriers, they're guidelines that help define one's personal space, limits, and values. By establishing what's acceptable and what's not, one can begin to navigate social interactions without losing themselves in the process. However, setting boundaries means little if one cannot communicate them effectively. This brings us to perhaps the most potent 2-letter word in the English language: no. Saying no isn't a rejection of the person or their request, It's a declaration of self-respect. It's an acknowledgement that while one might wish to help or participate, current circumstances or well-being don't permit it. Of course, asserting boundaries and declining requests can induce guilt, especially for seasoned people-pleasers. It's crucial to remember that saying no doesn't diminish one's kindness or value. On the contrary, by preserving one's well-being, they're better equipped to help and support others genuinely and wholeheartedly when the situation allows. In the grand tapestry of human interactions, kindness and the desire to please are threads that add vibrancy and warmth. However, like any intricate design, balance is key. By recognizing the potential pitfalls of excessive people-pleasing, setting clear boundaries, and learning to say no without being consumed by guilt, individuals can weave a life that's not just pleasing to others, but deeply fulfilling to themselves. After all, true kindness begins with being kind to oneself. Being taken advantage of. Kindness, in its purest form, is a radiant expression of the human spirit. It's the gentle hand that offers support, the soothing voice that offers solace, and the open heart that gives without expecting. However, this very openness, when not tempered with discernment, can make one susceptible to the manipulations of those with less than honorable intentions. While it's a painful notion to consider, not every hand extended in response to our kindness is looking for a heartfelt connection. Some are merely seeking to take. In many instances, it starts subtly. It could be a colleague always expecting help but never being there when the tables turn. Or a friend who frequently borrows, be it money or possessions, with a list of excuses instead of returns. Maybe it's a partner who constantly demands emotional support but rarely reciprocates. Over time, these repeated instances evolve from isolated incidents to a pattern that exploits one's kindness and generosity. The repercussions of consistently being taken advantage of are multifaceted. On the surface, there's the obvious emotional drain. Each act of unreciprocated kindness, each broken promise, and every thankless favor chips away at one's emotional reservoir. The once boundless energy and enthusiasm for helping others slowly wanes, replaced by a growing sense of cynicism and guardedness. Beyond the emotional toll, there's the tangible depletion of resources. Time, money, and sometimes even physical well-being are sacrificed in the service of those who exploit. These repeated sacrifices can lead to tangible setbacks, be it in personal goals, financial stability, or career progression. But perhaps the most insidious consequence is the erosion of self-worth. When one's kindness is repeatedly exploited, it can lead to a barrage of self-questioning. Thoughts such as, "Am I not worth the respect? Why do I always end up being used? Or, is there something wrong with me?" can plague the mind. This internal dialogue can steadily diminish one's self-esteem, casting a shadow on the very trait, kindness, that should be a source of pride. So how does one protect themselves from falling into the snares of exploitation while retaining their genuine desire to be kind? The journey begins with awareness and recognition. It's vital to be alert to the signs of manipulative behavior. These can manifest as guilt-tripping, playing the victim card, offering hollow promises, or frequently shifting goalposts. By being attuned to these behaviors, one can discern genuine requests for help from manipulative ploys. Yet, awareness is only the starting point. What follows is the need for discernment in relationships. It's essential to periodically evaluate one's relationships, separating the wheat from the chaff. Recognizing those who value and reciprocate kindness from those who merely take can be illuminating. It doesn't necessarily mean cutting ties immediately, but adjusting the level of generosity and openness based on the nature of the relationship. An essential tool in this journey of discernment is open communication. If a pattern of exploitation is identified, address it. Sometimes, it's a mere lack of awareness on the other person's part, and an open conversation can reset the dynamics of the relationship. At the heart of avoiding exploitation while being kind is the fusion of kindness with wisdom. Kindness need not be blind. It can be, and should be, practiced with open eyes and an alert mind. By integrating awareness, discernment, and open communication into one's approach towards kindness, one can not only guard against exploitation, but also ensure that their acts of generosity are directed towards those who truly value and appreciate them. In the end, being kind doesn't mean one should be an open book with pages ready to be torn. Instead, think of oneself as a well-curated library, open to all but with clear rules, ensuring that the knowledge and generosity within are respected, valued, and reciprocated. Suppressing genuine emotions. In a world that often emphasizes positivity and the power of a sunny disposition, there's an unsaid pressure to always present our best, most gracious selves. This idea is especially true for individuals with a kind-hearted nature. Whether it's in the face of criticism, in response to hurtful comments, or even during personal upheavals, there's a silent expectation to maintain a composed, kind facade. This always happy or always understanding demeanor, while commendable in many situations, can become a double-edged sword if it leads to the consistent suppression of genuine emotions. For many, wearing this mask starts as a protective mechanism. It's simpler to smile through the pain or to laugh off a hurtful comment than to confront it head-on, risking conflict or discomfort. Over time, this mask solidifies, becoming an intrinsic part of one's identity. What was once a conscious choice slowly morphs into an involuntary reflex. Emotions in their rawest form are our mind's way of communicating with us. They are signals, indicating our well-being, our needs, and our boundaries. When we consistently suppress these signals, especially the ones deemed negative such as anger, sadness, or hurt, we're essentially muting this internal communication. The repercussions of this emotional suppression are manifold. On a physiological level, bottled emotions can lead to increased stress. The body and mind, in their attempt to keep these emotions under wraps, expend significant energy, leading to fatigue, restlessness, and even somatic symptoms like headaches or digestive issues. The mental toll is even more pronounced. Emotions, when not expressed or processed, don't simply vanish. They simmer beneath the surface, and over time can lead to a range of mental health issues, from anxiety and depression to a pervasive feeling of emptiness. This consistent suppression can also result in emotional outbursts, where the pent-up feelings explode in situations unrelated to the original cause. However, perhaps the most profound consequence of this suppression is its impact on relationships. Genuine, deep connections are built on authenticity. When one constantly hides behind the mask of perpetual kindness, they prevent others from seeing, understanding, and connecting with their true selves. This lack of authenticity can stifle the depth of relationships, rendering them superficial. Breaking free from the shackles of suppressed emotions begins with acknowledgement. It's crucial to recognize and accept that it's natural, and in fact healthy, to feel a spectrum of emotions. Not every situation warrants a smile, and not every comment should be laughed off. To navigate this emotional landscape, communication becomes the guiding star. Instead of masking feelings, express them. This doesn't mean venting out anger uncontrollably or drowning others in our sorrows. It's about conveying feelings in a measured, constructive manner. For instance, if a friend's comment hurts, instead of suppressing the hurt, one could say, "I value our relationship, and that comment made me feel hurt. Can we discuss it?" Practicing emotional intelligence goes hand in hand with open communication. Emotional intelligence allows us to not only recognize and understand our emotions, but also to manage and express them appropriately. It provides the tools to convey feelings without causing harm, ensuring that the message is understood and not just heard. An essential aspect of this journey is to surround oneself with supportive individuals who value emotional honesty. Seek out friends, family, or even support groups that encourage genuine expression and create a safe space for open dialogue. In essence, the journey away from suppressing genuine emotions is a journey towards authenticity. It's about embracing the entirety of the human experience, the highs and the lows, the joys and the sorrows. By communicating feelings honestly and practicing emotional intelligence, one can not only foster better mental and emotional well-being, but also cultivate relationships that are rooted in genuine understanding and deep connection. Remember, true kindness isn't just about being kind to others. It's equally about being kind to oneself, and part of this kindness is allowing oneself the freedom to feel, to express, and to be truly wholly human. Overextending yourself. The human spirit, in its noblest manifestations, often seeks to transcend its boundaries, pushing the envelope of what's possible. This sentiment is particularly amplified in kind-hearted individuals. Driven by an intrinsic desire to assist, uplift, and make a difference, they frequently find themselves volunteering for tasks, offering help, or taking on responsibilities even when their plates are already brimming. While the intent behind these actions is undoubtedly pure, the act of consistently overextending oneself can lead to unintended and often adverse consequences. The scenario is all too common. A colleague asks for help on a project when you're already swamped with your tasks. A friend requests a favor when you've barely had a moment for yourself. In these situations, the immediate impulse for many is to say yes, driven by the desire to be kind, to be seen as reliable, or simply because turning someone down feels uncomfortable. Consistently overextending oneself is akin to continuously drawing from a well without allowing it to replenish. The immediate effects might not be noticeable, but over time, the signs of depletion become evident. Physically, the strain manifests as fatigue. The body, in its attempt to keep up with the ever-increasing demands, starts to wear out. Sleep patterns can get disrupted, energy levels drop, and there's a general sense of being run down. Mentally, the toll is twofold. Productivity, for one, takes a hit. As tasks pile up and responsibilities mount, the ability to focus and deliver effectively diminishes. Quality often gets compromised in the race to meet quantity. Furthermore, the continuous cycle of taking on more than one can handle and then struggling to keep up can lead to feelings of inadequacy and decreased self-worth. Over time, the initial joy derived from helping and being of service morphs into resentment. This resentment can be directed towards the very people one is helping, or even towards oneself for not setting boundaries. It's a perplexing emotional state, being resentful for actions driven by one's intrinsic kindness. Preventing this cycle of overextension begins with a crucial realization: recognizing one's limits. This doesn't equate to admitting inadequacy or lack of capability. Instead, it's about understanding that, like every resource, one's energy, time, and capabilities are finite. And to be of service in the long run, one needs to allocate these resources judiciously. The practice of self-awareness plays a pivotal role here. Regularly check in with yourself, assess your energy levels, gauge your mood, and evaluate your workload. If you find yourself consistently fatigued, overwhelmed, or irritable, it's a signal that you might be stretching yourself too thin. Coupled with self-awareness is the art of saying no. Declining a request or turning down an offer doesn't diminish one's kindness or value. It merely signifies a momentary pause, ensuring that when one does say yes, they can do so wholeheartedly and effectively. Another essential facet in this journey is self-care. Prioritize activities and practices that replenish your energy and spirit. Whether it's a hobby, meditation, exercise, or simply taking breaks, ensure that you're carving out time for rejuvenation. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. The crux of the matter is this: kindness, while a profound virtue, must be practiced in moderation, not in terms of how frequently one is kind, but in understanding when to offer help and when to step back. It's a delicate dance between generosity and self-preservation. In the end, the goal isn't to limit one's kindness, but to ensure its sustainability. By recognizing limits, practicing self-awareness, and prioritizing self-care, one can strike a balance, ensuring that their acts of kindness are not just fleeting gestures but lifelong commitments. Avoiding necessary conflict. For many of us, conflict is uncomfortable. It conjures images of heated arguments, hurtful words, and lingering tension. Thus, it's no surprise that a significant number of people, especially those with a naturally kind disposition, seek to avoid it at all costs. In a bid to maintain harmony and ensure that no feathers are ruffled, these individuals often steer clear of confrontations, dodge difficult conversations, or even silently bear injustices. The intent is pure, to avoid causing pain or disturbance. But what if, in the quest for perpetual peace, one is inadvertently paying a silent and hefty price? When conflicts are consistently avoided, the issues that warranted them don't magically disappear. Instead, they go underground, forming subtle undercurrents that influence interactions, decisions, and feelings. One of the most tangible effects of avoiding necessary conflict is the accumulation of unresolved issues. Think of these as invisible barriers. While they might not be immediately evident, they impede genuine connection and understanding. Over time, these barriers stack up, creating distance and fostering misunderstanding in relationships. Furthermore, the atmosphere becomes thick with tension. There's always the unsaid, the topic everyone dances around, or the issue that's palpable but never addressed. This tension, while often brushed under the carpet, has a way of manifesting. It might be in the form of passive-aggressive behavior, sudden emotional outbursts, or even physical symptoms like stress or anxiety. Beyond the immediate relational context, avoiding necessary conflict also robs individuals of growth opportunities. Confrontations, while challenging, are crucibles of personal development. They teach resilience, foster understanding, and build communication skills. Consistently sidestepping them means missing out on these valuable lessons. At this juncture, it's essential to differentiate between conflict for conflict's sake and constructive conflict. The former is disruptive and destructive, born out of ego or the desire to dominate. The latter, however, is rooted in the pursuit of understanding, resolution, and growth. Embracing constructive conflict doesn't mean seeking out disagreements. It signifies being open to addressing issues when they arise, valuing resolution over temporary peace. It's about viewing conflict not as a battleground, but as a meeting ground, a space where differing perspectives can converge to find common ground. Effective communication is the cornerstone of constructive conflict. This entails active listening. Before responding, truly hear the other person out. Understand their perspective, feelings, and concerns. Speaking without accusing. Frame statements using "I feel" rather than "you did." This reduces defensiveness and opens the door to understanding. Seeking clarification. If something is ambiguous or unclear, ask questions. Avoid making assumptions. Finding common ground. Focus on shared goals or mutual concerns, using them as a foundation to build upon. Agreeing to disagree. Recognize that it's okay to have differing opinions. The goal is understanding, not necessarily agreement. Avoiding the storm might prevent immediate discomfort, but it often leads to long-term turbulence. Facing it head-on, armed with the tools of effective communication, can lead to clearer skies and stronger bonds. In essence, the journey towards embracing constructive conflict is a journey of courage. It's about valuing depth over surface-level harmony, growth over stagnation, and genuine connection over appeasement. It's a realization that true kindness sometimes involves stepping into the arena of disagreement, not for battle but for mutual growth and understanding. Diminishing your self-worth. In many cultural narratives, the act of selflessness stands as a pinnacle of virtue. We hear tales of heroes sacrificing their desires for the greater good, of individuals putting others before themselves, and of acts of kindness that know no bounds. At its core, this virtue stems from a genuine love for humanity and a desire to create positive change. However, when consistently practiced without a parallel focus on oneself, this selflessness can lead to the inadvertent erosion of one's self-worth. When one constantly prioritizes others, a subtle message begins to embed itself in the psyche, that others' needs, feelings, and desires hold more weight than one's own. Over time, this belief solidifies, leading to a myriad of adverse consequences. Low self-esteem stands out as a primary fallout. If you constantly sideline your desires and aspirations, you start questioning your worth. A persistent feeling of being less than or not good enough takes root. This isn't just a fleeting emotion, it influences decisions, actions, and relationships. Feeling undervalued becomes a natural byproduct. In interactions, you might feel as though your opinions don't matter or that your contributions are insignificant. This perception isn't always rooted in reality, but a consequence of the internal narrative you've crafted. Further, the diminishing sense of self-worth manifests in missed opportunities. If you don't value yourself, you might not advocate for that promotion, pursue that dream project, or stand up for what you believe in. Essentially, the world is robbed of the full spectrum of your potential simply because you've chosen to dim your own light. The journey back to recognizing and embracing one's self-worth isn't about swinging the pendulum to the other extreme and becoming self-centered. It's about finding a balanced middle ground where kindness towards others is complemented by kindness towards oneself. Self-compassion lies at the heart of this journey. This means treating yourself with the same level of understanding, patience, and love that you offer to others. Recognize your achievements, however small, and celebrate them. Acknowledge your failures not as indictments of your worth, but as stepping stones of growth. Develop a nurturing inner voice, one that uplifts rather than belittles. At the same time, cultivate assertiveness. Being assertive isn't about being aggressive or domineering. It's about expressing your needs, feelings, and boundaries in a respectful yet firm manner. Assertiveness training or workshops can be instrumental in honing this skill. Here are steps to integrate self-compassion and assertiveness into your life. Regular self-reflection. Dedicate time to introspect. Understand your needs, aspirations, and feelings. Validate them. Positive self-talk. Challenge and replace negative beliefs about yourself with uplifting affirmations. Set boundaries. Clearly define what you're comfortable with and communicate it. It's okay to say no, to ask for what you need, and to prioritize your well-being. Seek feedback. Talk to trusted friends or family. Understand how they perceive you and juxtapose it with your self-perception. This can offer valuable insights. Invest in personal growth. Attend workshops, read books, or seek therapy. Tools that enhance self-awareness and assertiveness can be transformational. True kindness isn't a zero-sum game where compassion towards oneself detracts from compassion towards others. In reality, by nurturing one's self-worth and ensuring that the wellspring of self-love is abundant, one can offer more genuine, sustainable, and impactful kindness to the world. In essence, the act of valuing oneself isn't selfish, it's foundational. It ensures that your acts of kindness emerge from a place of fullness rather than lack, from choice rather than obligation, and from love rather than duty. Misunderstanding of kindness. Across cultures and histories, kindness has been painted with broad strokes on the canvas of human virtues. However, somewhere along the lines of translation and interpretation, its essence has been oversimplified, and a few myths have emerged. One of the most pervasive myths is that kindness is synonymous with passivity, submissiveness, or an inherent lack of strength. This misconception can be traced back to numerous sources. From folklore tales where the kind-hearted protagonist is often portrayed as docile and submissive to societal norms that might associate gentleness with weakness. The truth, however, is far more nuanced. The ramifications of misconstrued kindness, operating under the belief that kindness equates to perpetual passivity, can lead to a host of challenges. For one, constantly yielding, acquiescing, or suppressing one's voice can result in others perceiving you as indecisive or weak. This perception, even if unfounded, can have tangible implications, especially in settings like workplaces where decisiveness and strength are valued. Moreover, the act of constantly sidelining one's desires or opinions in the name of kindness can be misinterpreted. Colleagues might misconstrue it as a lack of conviction or passion. Friends might interpret it as disinterest. In relationships, it might be seen as indifference. The ripple effect of this misunderstanding can lead to reduced opportunities, strained relationships, and a diminished sense of self-worth. The crux of the issue here is not the act of kindness itself, but the flawed understanding and application of it. True kindness is neither weak nor passive. It is in fact a powerful force, a blend of compassion, wisdom, and strength. Kindness is not about never standing up for oneself or never showcasing one's power. It's about knowing when to exercise that power, how to do it with grace, and doing so for the right reasons. True kindness is the strength in lending a hand to someone in need. It's the wisdom in understanding when silence speaks louder than words. It's the courage in standing up against injustices, not just for oneself, but for others too. Kindness, in its purest form, is assertive. Here are ways to practice assertive kindness. 1. Educate yourself. Understand the difference between passivity, aggression, and assertiveness. Kindness thrives in the assertive space. 2. Clear communication. Express your needs, beliefs, and feelings transparently. Doing so doesn't dilute your kindness. It amplifies its authenticity. 3. Boundaries are essential. Kindness doesn't mean letting others overstep your boundaries. Define them clearly and guard them, all while maintaining respect for others. 4. Lead with empathy. Understand the emotions and needs of others. This will help in navigating situations with both kindness and assertiveness. 5. Seek role models. Identify figures in your life or history who epitomize assertive kindness. Analyze their actions and learn. It's high time the narrative around kindness evolves. Kindness is not the opposite of strength, it's a complement. A kind individual can be a formidable leader, a decisive manager, and a passionate advocate. They wield their strength not like a sledgehammer, but like a scalpel, precise, effective, and with care. In closing, embracing the true essence of kindness is about discarding outdated, one-dimensional notions and recognizing its multifaceted nature. It's about understanding that at the heart of every genuinely kind act is not weakness, but a reservoir of strength and wisdom. As we've journeyed through the nuanced landscape of kindness, we've dissected its multifaceted nature, shedding light on the pivotal touchpoints where its essence can sometimes become misguided or misdirected. 1. Excessive people-pleasing, the danger of always seeking external validation and the criticality of setting boundaries. 2. Being taken advantage of, recognizing and navigating the treacherous waters where genuine kindness can be exploited. 3. Suppressing genuine emotions, the silent cost of always wearing a kind mask and the liberation of authentic emotional expression. 4. Overextending yourself, the pitfalls of stretching oneself too thin and the importance of understanding one's own limits. 5. Avoiding necessary conflict, the hidden detriments of constantly sidestepping confrontations and the growth fostered through constructive conflict. 6. Diminishing your self-worth, the subtle ways in which continuous self-sacrifice can erode self-value and the rejuvenating power of self-compassion. 7. Misunderstanding of kindness, debunking the myth that kindness is passive, highlighting its inherent strength and assertiveness. The tapestry of kindness, woven from these threads, paints a vivid picture. It's not just about benevolence, but balance. It's not solely about selflessness, but also self-respect. True kindness, when understood and practiced wisely, becomes a potent force that enriches not just the recipient but also the giver. Yet, like any force, it must be wielded with awareness and care. Let kindness not become a weight that drags you down, but wings that let you soar. It's essential to remember that being kind shouldn't come at the expense of your well-being or self-respect. Like the yin and yang, there exists a harmonious balance between selflessness and self-care. As we close this chapter on kindness, let us carry forward the powerful truth that real kindness is not a whisper, but a resolute voice. It is not the surrender of strength, but its very embodiment. True kindness is the courage to uphold boundaries while opening your heart, the fortitude to stand firm in your values while extending a helping hand, and the bravery to be compassionate without losing sight of your worth. Let this be your guiding star. Kindness is not the absence of strength, but the presence of strength used lovingly. Hold this principle close, and let the strength of your kindness be the light that brightens the world, a steadfast beacon of hope and humanity. Have you ever wished for a shield against life's chaos? An inner compass guiding you through the storms, or a daily blueprint for unwavering tranquility? While such desires might seem ambitious, there existed ancient minds who unlocked these very secrets, turning them into an art of living. This art, known as Stoicism, is not confined to dusty old books, but is as alive and applicable today as it was millennia ago. Stoicism, for those unfamiliar, isn't just another philosophical doctrine, it's a life manual. Originating in ancient Greece, Stoicism was championed by the likes of Seneca, Epictetus, and the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. It is not about stifling emotions or leading an emotionless life, but rather about understanding the nature of our emotions, our reactions to the external world, and choosing a path that leads to inner peace and virtuous action. At its core, this philosophy revolves around a few fundamental principles. Understanding what is within our control. Not everything that happens to us or around us is within our control. Stoics believe that while we can't always control external events, we can control our responses to them. This distinction frees us from unnecessary anguish and enables us to find serenity even in the face of adversity. Pursuing virtue. Stoicism places a high value on personal virtue and integrity. It's not just about what we achieve, but how we achieve it. The journey and our conduct matter more than the destination. Accepting nature's course. The Stoics saw the world as a reflection of a rational order. By understanding and accepting the natural course of events, we align ourselves with this order, leading to a harmonious existence. Value of the present. While we often get lost in the past's regrets and the future's anxieties, Stoics emphasize the importance of the present. This moment right now is all we truly have, and we should cherish and make the most of it. Now you might be wondering, that sounds great in theory, but how do I actually incorporate these principles into my daily life? That's a valid concern. Philosophies, after all, aren't just to be read about, they're to be lived. And that's where the importance of a daily routine comes into play. Daily routines are powerful. They are the scaffolding upon which we build our lives. They provide structure, focus, and a pathway to manifest our beliefs into actionable steps. For a Stoic, a well-crafted daily routine is not just a set of tasks. It's a living embodiment of their core principles. It's about waking up every day with a clear sense of purpose, ready to face challenges with equanimity, make the most of the present moment, and grow a little wiser and a little stronger. And that's exactly why you're here today. In this video, we'll outline a Stoic routine that you can integrate into your everyday life. A routine rooted in millennia of wisdom, but tailored for the modern world. This isn't just another self-help guide, it's a transformative journey towards a richer, more purposeful life. Through this routine, you will not only understand Stoicism, but live it, making each day a testament to its enduring power and relevance. So, whether you're a seasoned philosopher or someone just starting their journey into the world of Stoicism, there's something here for everyone. Let's embark on this voyage together, embracing the Stoic ideals and integrating them into our daily rhythms. One, morning reflection. One of the foundational practices deeply rooted in Stoicism is starting the day with a period of reflection. This isn't merely a passive routine, but a purposeful recalibration of our mindset for the day ahead. Dawn ushers in not just the light of the sun, but the illumination of opportunity. It's a fresh slate, an untouched canvas upon which we paint our actions and intentions. The Stoics recognized this and believed in harnessing the power of the morning to anchor themselves in their philosophy. While most of us might be tempted to jump straight into the frenetic pace of the day or immediately reach out for our devices, a Stoic starts with an inward journey. This practice of morning reflection provides a momentary pause, allowing us to remind ourselves of Stoic teachings and set the tone for the day. Consider the words of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history and yet a Stoic at heart. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words aren't just poetic musings, but are filled with profound wisdom. In our modern era, it's all too easy to take the gift of life for granted. Amidst the daily grind, the notifications, the ever-mounting to-do lists, we often forget the simple miracle of existence. His words serve as a gentle nudge, reminding us of this gift. To breathe means we are alive, a part of this vast, intricate universe. To think implies the capacity to reason, reflect, and learn. To enjoy is to savor life's experiences, both grand and minuscule. And to love, perhaps the most profound of all human experiences, signifies our ability to connect, empathize, and find meaning in our relationships. But the morning reflection isn't just about recognizing life's beauty, it's equally about understanding its fragility. The Stoics constantly reminded themselves of the impermanence of life, not to become morose, but to cultivate gratitude and a sense of urgency. Every morning presents an opportunity to practice this gratitude, to truly appreciate the myriad experiences, relationships, and opportunities that life offers. When we start the day with this mindset, our troubles seem more surmountable, our joys become more profound, and our actions are imbued with purpose. At the same time, acknowledging life's impermanence each morning helps us avoid complacency. It serves as a daily reminder that our time is limited, urging us to act with intention and make the most of each moment. It's a call to avoid needless worries over trivialities, to forgive more readily, to express love more openly, and to prioritize what truly matters. Building on this foundation of morning reflection, the Stoics introduced a principle that's both simple and transformative: the dichotomy of control. This concept involves understanding what is within our control and what isn't, a distinction that's crucial for maintaining tranquility amidst life's unpredictabilities. We might not have a say in external events, the sudden rainstorm, a friend's unexpected remark, or a global event that shakes economies. However, we always have a choice in how we respond. The Stoics urge us to focus our energies only on what we can influence, thereby freeing us from the shackles of external validations and circumstances. Imagine the empowerment in truly internalizing this concept. The daily irritations, the unforeseen setbacks, even significant life challenges are all seen in a new light, not as insurmountable obstacles, but as opportunities to practice Stoic principles. The practices and principles of Stoicism, when integrated into our daily lives, provide a sturdy framework for navigating the complexities of the modern world. Starting the day with a morning reflection grounded in gratitude and an acknowledgement of life's fleeting nature helps set the stage for a day lived with intention, purpose, and resilience. While Stoicism might have its roots in ancient times, its teachings are timeless, offering profound insights and practical tools for personal growth, inner peace, and a life well lived. Whether you're just beginning your Stoic journey or deepening your practice, remember that each day offers a fresh opportunity to embody these principles and craft a life of wisdom, virtue, and contentment. Two, embrace discomfort. Within the expansive landscape of Stoicism, a consistent theme resonates: the idea that growth, transformation, and the very essence of life is often found not in the comforting embrace of the known, but in the challenging terrains of discomfort. The Stoics did not merely preach this idea, they lived it, intentionally seeking out experiences that stretched their limits, jolted them out of complacency, and required them to summon depths of courage they might not have known they possessed. For many, the pursuit of comfort is a life goal. Our modern world, with its myriad conveniences and technologies, often lulls us into a cushioned existence. But the Stoics recognized a profound truth, that while comfort can soothe, it's discomfort that truly shapes. Consider the act of taking a cold shower. At face value, it's a simple switch from warm to cold. But in that icy embrace lies a challenge, a confrontation with the self, a test of one's will, and a reminder of the impermanence of discomfort. With each cold droplet, one learns to breathe through the initial shock, to find stillness in the midst of discomfort, and to emerge not just refreshed, but transformed. Similarly, physical exercise, be it a rigorous workout, a long hike, or even a series of deep stretches, pushes the body beyond its usual limits. Muscles ache, sweat pours, and yet with each rep or step, there's an internal strengthening that goes beyond the physical. It's a mental fortitude being built, a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, adapt, and overcome. And then there's the realm of social discomfort. Speaking in public, initiating a difficult conversation, or even the simple act of expressing one's true feelings, these situations can be incredibly daunting. But in confronting these fears, in choosing to speak despite the quiver in one's voice or the racing heart, one is practicing the Stoic principle of facing adversity with unyielding courage. Seneca, one of the towering figures of Stoicism, encapsulated the essence of this idea in his profound observation. It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult. These words are not just a reflection, but a clarion call. Seneca urges us to reframe our perspective, to recognize that our apprehensions, our hesitations, often amplify the perceived difficulty of a task. The mountain seems insurmountable not because of its sheer height, but because of the weight of our doubts and fears. By choosing to dare, to confront discomfort head-on, we don't just diminish the difficulty of the task, we also expand our own horizons, pushing the boundaries of what we believe is possible for ourselves. It's a transformative process, where the act of daring reshapes not just our experiences, but our very essence. Beyond personal growth, there's a broader, more profound impact of embracing discomfort. When we challenge ourselves, when we step out of our comfort zones and venture into the unknown, we inspire others. Our actions, our courage serve as a beacon, showing those around us the possibilities that lie beyond the familiar. In a way, the Stoic practice of embracing discomfort is not just an individual journey, but a collective upliftment, a wave that has the potential to elevate society at large. Three, practice negative visualization. In the continuum of human experience, our minds are often drawn to the positive, to hopes, dreams, and aspirations. But Stoicism introduces a counterintuitive yet profoundly impactful exercise: negative visualization. It beckons us to occasionally step away from the sunlit meadows of optimism and wander the shadowed woods of potential adversities. This isn't an exercise in pessimism, but rather one of preparation and profound appreciation. Imagining the what-ifs. Imagine waking up one day and not having the comforts you've grown accustomed to, or losing a loved one, or confronting a personal health crisis. These are not pleasant thoughts, and our instinct might be to push them away, to seek refuge in the comforting embrace of positivity. Yet, The Stoics believed in occasionally dwelling on these scenarios not to induce fear or sadness, but to harness a deeper understanding and appreciation of the present. By vividly imagining scenarios where things go wrong or we lose something or someone valuable, we are not just indulging in morbid fantasies. We are, in essence, conducting thought experiments, gauging our emotional and psychological reactions to potential adversities. One immediate outcome of negative visualization is a profound appreciation for the present. When we consider the fragility of our current circumstances, the impermanence of our relationships and material possessions, we begin to see them in a new light. The simple joys, the daily comforts, the bonds we share all become more precious, more cherished. The mundane transforms into the extraordinary. Furthermore, by mentally navigating the challenges of our imagined scenarios, we prepare our minds for real-life adversities. It's akin to a fire drill. By simulating a crisis, we familiarize ourselves with our escape routes, ensuring that when a real fire breaks out, we aren't paralyzed by panic, but are prepared to act swiftly and decisively. The human mind, in its quest for security, often fears the unknown. This fear, more often than not, is rooted not in the actual adversities we might face, but in our perceived inability to handle them. Negative visualization directly addresses this fear. By repeatedly engaging with challenging scenarios in our minds, we build mental resilience. With each imagined adversity, we also visualize our response, our coping strategies, our sources of strength. Over time, this practice conditions us to believe in our capacity to handle challenges. The unknown becomes less daunting, not because we've unraveled its mysteries, but because we trust in our ability to navigate its complexities. Moreover, this practice diminishes the disproportionate distress often caused by unexpected setbacks. When something goes wrong, the Stoic practitioner can calmly say, "I was prepared for this," and draw from the reservoir of mental fortitude built over time. However, it's crucial to approach negative visualization with balance. It's a tool, not a way of life. Dwell too long or too often in the realm of imagined adversities, and it can become counterproductive, inducing anxiety rather than alleviating it. The key is moderation and intent. When practiced judiciously, with the clear intent of building resilience and fostering appreciation, negative visualization can be a transformative Stoic exercise. Beyond our internal reflections, Stoicism also offers profound insights into our interactions with the external world. In every interaction, be it with nature, individuals, or broader society, there's an opportunity to practice Stoic principles. From the manner in which we respond to a rude remark to the way we engage with societal issues, Stoicism provides a compass, guiding us towards actions rooted in wisdom, courage, and virtue. Four, take action with purpose. In this ancient philosophy, much emphasis is placed on internal reflection, mastery over one's emotions, and the art of perceptive thinking. However, equally paramount to the Stoic doctrine is the call to action, not just any action, but action steeped in purpose, aligned with virtue, and echoing the resonant call of one's true self. At its core, Stoicism is more than a philosophy. It's a way of life. And life, as the Stoics remind us, is not a passive existence, but a dynamic interplay of thoughts, emotions, and crucially, actions. It doesn't advocate for a retreat from the world, but rather an active engagement with it, driven by the tenets of virtue and righteousness. Virtue in the Stoic worldview isn't just about moral rectitude, it encompasses wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. It's the compass by which one navigates the myriad decisions of daily life, ensuring that each choice, each action, is a reflection of one's highest self. This doesn't mean a Stoic is infallible. On the contrary, it acknowledges the imperfections but constantly strives towards this ideal, learning from missteps and continually refining one's path. How often do we find ourselves adrift in the tide of daily routines, the hours blending into one another, days passing with a sense of monotony? Stoicism challenges this passive existence, urging us to infuse each day with purpose. It's not about grand gestures or monumental achievements every day. It's about aligning daily tasks, however small or mundane they might seem, with a greater purpose. It could be as simple as reading a chapter from a book to enrich one's mind, helping a neighbor, or dedicating time to a personal project that resonates with one's values. By identifying and working on purposeful tasks, we transform each day from a mere passage of time to a tapestry of meaningful moments, each thread woven with intentionality and purpose. As long as you live, keep learning how to live. This timeless adage from Seneca is not just an ode to lifelong learning, but a profound insight into the evolving nature of our existence. Life is not static, it's an ever-evolving journey, with each phase bringing its own set of challenges, joys, sorrows, and learnings. To truly live, in the Stoic sense, is to be in sync with this dynamic rhythm, continually adapting, growing, and refining oneself. The quote is a reminder that life, in all its unpredictability, offers endless opportunities to learn and grow. And central to this learning is the act of purposeful living. Every interaction, every task, every challenge is a classroom, and when approached with a Stoic mindset, the lessons gleaned are invaluable. In essence, to learn how to live is to act with purpose, guided by virtue, and anchored in self-awareness. It's a commitment to making each day count, not by the world's standards of success, but by the Stoic metrics of virtue, purpose, and personal growth. Stoicism, while deeply personal, is not solitary. The Stoics recognize the intrinsic human need for connection and community. Our actions, while emanating from personal beliefs and values, resonate in the wider community. Thus, it also urges us to be conscious of our role in the collective, ensuring that our purpose-driven actions not only uplift us, but also contribute positively to the broader societal tapestry. (5) Evening reflection. The rhythmic dance of day and night has long been a symbolic representation of life's duality, action and reflection, light and darkness, growth and rest. Just as the morning heralds a new beginning, urging us to step forward with intent, the evening is a gentle nudge to pause, to look inward, and to make sense of the day's tapestry. It is within this serene embrace of the night that the Stoic practice of evening reflection finds its rightful place. One of the profound gifts of human consciousness is the ability to self-evaluate, to stand apart from one's actions and thoughts and analyze them without bias. The Stoics saw immense value in this. Every evening, they would retreat into a space of quiet introspection, turning the gaze inward, examining the events of the day, the decisions made, the emotions felt, and the words spoken. This isn't an exercise in self-judgment or an opportunity to berate oneself for perceived missteps. Instead, it's a sincere attempt to understand oneself better, to identify patterns, to celebrate the day's victories, no matter how small, and to acknowledge areas that require more attention or improvement. As we already mentioned, central to Stoic philosophy is the understanding of control, or more precisely, the dichotomy of control. It's the wisdom to recognize what is within our control and what isn't. This principle is pivotal in the practice of evening reflection. As one revisits the day's events, it's crucial to categorize them using this Stoic lens. Perhaps you encountered a rude coworker, faced an unexpected challenge, or missed an important deadline. While the initial reactions might range from anger to disappointment, the evening reflection offers a fresh perspective. By asking, "Was this within my control?" we start to discern the external factors from the internal ones. The co-worker's behavior, the sudden challenges, are externalities beyond one's direct control. But our reactions, our emotions, our subsequent decisions, these fall firmly within the realm of our agency. By consistently recognizing these boundaries, we not only absolve ourselves of unnecessary guilt, but also empower ourselves to manage what truly lies within our grasp. Our responses, our mindset, and our future actions. The evening reflection, while grounded in today, is also a bridge to tomorrow. Having gleaned insights from the day, understood patterns, and recognized areas of growth, it's also a moment to prepare mentally for the day ahead. This preparation isn't about meticulous planning or setting rigid goals, but rather it's an internal commitment, a pledge to uphold Stoic virtues, to face tomorrow's uncertainties with equanimity, and to act with purpose and integrity. It's a reaffirmation of one's Stoic journey, a quiet resolve to continue learning, growing, and striving for a life of virtue and purpose. As we delve deeper into these practices, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Stoicism, though ancient, is evergreen. Its principles, its practices, its wisdom resonate as deeply today as they did in the bustling streets of ancient Rome or the philosophical halls of Athens. The evening reflection, like all Stoic practices, is timeless, a testament to the philosophy's enduring relevance and its universal appeal to the human quest for a meaningful life. Six, journaling. In the vast arena of self-development and self-awareness, journaling stands out as a timeless and universally advocated tool. Yet for the Stoics, it wasn't just about penning down thoughts. It was akin to holding up a mirror to one's soul, creating a dialogue with oneself and sculpting the psyche through words. In the noise and rush of our modern lives, introspection often gets relegated to the background. We're constantly reacting to stimuli, to information, to emotions. Journaling offers an oasis of introspection, pulling us out of the reactive mode into a space of contemplation. This act of self-reflection, a cornerstone of Stoic practice, is instrumental in gaining clarity. Think of clarity as the compass of the mind. Without it, we're easily swayed by external forces, unable to distinguish between transient whims and genuine values. By penning down our thoughts, we map the contours of our inner landscape, discerning patterns, acknowledging fears, and crystallizing aspirations. Each written word is a step towards understanding the self better, towards the clarity that guides purposeful action. Every day, we're met with challenges, some as trivial as a spilled cup of coffee, others as profound as a personal loss. To an untrained mind, these challenges can provoke disproportionate distress, but the Stoic, through journaling, has a unique tool to dissect and understand these experiences. When we document challenges, we're not merely recounting events, we're placing them under the Stoic prism. What aspect of this challenge is within my control? How does this align with Stoic principles? How can I transform this obstacle into an opportunity for growth? These are questions that transform ordinary journaling into a Stoic exercise. Moreover, by articulating thoughts through the written word, we're engaging in a dialogue with Stoic philosophy itself. We're inviting Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus to be our sounding boards, guiding our reflections with their timeless wisdom. One of the misconceptions about Stoicism is that it advocates emotional suppression. On the contrary, Stoicism teaches us emotional understanding and mastery, and journaling is a potent ally in this endeavor. Writing about our emotions allows us to process them. By laying them out on paper, we externalize them, viewing them as separate entities rather than overwhelming forces. This act of externalization is therapeutic. It provides distance, allowing us to analyze emotions without getting entangled in them. Why did a particular comment upset me? What insecurities or beliefs did it trigger? Such questions, explored in a journal, pave the way for emotional maturity. Moreover, consistently writing about and reflecting upon Stoic principles reinforces them in our psyche. It's one thing to read about the dichotomy of control, it's another to actively apply it to daily experiences in a journal. This act of application solidifies our understanding and commitment to Stoic beliefs. Over time, these principles cease to be mere concepts and become an integral part of our cognitive framework. Historically, many Stoics were known to keep journals. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, for instance, was his personal journal, a reflection of his Stoic thoughts and struggles. It's a testament to the power of journaling that centuries later, we derive wisdom from his introspective writings. Incorporating journaling into our daily routine is not just a nod to Stoic tradition, but a practical tool for self-growth. It's a sanctuary where we converse with ourselves, dissect our experiences, and fortify our commitment to Stoic philosophy. Visualization, another invaluable Stoic technique, goes hand in hand with journaling. While journaling is retrospective, visualization is proactive. It involves anticipating the day's challenges and mentally preparing for them. Envision the potential setbacks of the day, the points of friction, the moments of temptation. Now, consider the Stoic way to handle each of these. By mentally rehearsing your Stoic response, you're equipping yourself to face real-life scenarios with equanimity and wisdom. It's like a simulation exercise preparing you for the battleground of daily life. Visualization ensures that when faced with challenges, your reactions aren't impulsive but are instead aligned with Stoic principles. It serves as a mental blueprint, guiding your actions and responses throughout the day. Seven, empathy and understanding. Among the multifaceted jewels of Stoic philosophy, one shines with a particularly gentle yet profound radiance, the tenet of empathy. For the Stoics, the practice of philosophy was not a solitary endeavor confined to the corners of contemplative rooms. Instead, it was deeply intertwined with the fabric of daily life, in the bustling marketplaces, the corridors of power, and the intimate spaces of homes. And at the heart of these interactions was a foundational Stoic belief. Every individual, regardless of their status or circumstance, is engaged in their unique struggle, a silent battle often hidden from view. It's a common human tendency to judge situations, and more critically, people, based on surface-level perceptions. A curt reply, an indifferent gesture, or even an act of rudeness, these are easily met with immediate reactions of annoyance, anger, or judgment. But Stoicism invites us to pause, to delve deeper, and to consider the myriad unseen factors that might be influencing someone's behavior. Perhaps the person who brushed past you without an apology had just received distressing news. Maybe the colleague who seemed dismissive is grappling with personal challenges. The stranger who seemed rude might just be having the worst day of their life. It's essential to remember that, like an iceberg, the majority of an individual's experiences, emotions, and challenges remain submerged, hidden from the casual observer's eye. Recognizing this is the first step towards genuine empathy, understanding that there's always more to a person than meets the eye. Interactions, both fleeting and profound, pepper our daily lives. And in these interactions lie immense opportunities for practicing Stoic principles. Instead of reacting impulsively to perceived slights or disagreements, Stoicism teaches us to respond with patience, understanding, and kindness. Practicing patience doesn't mean suppressing genuine feelings or allowing oneself to be mistreated. Instead, it's an exercise in perspective. It's about momentarily stepping out of one's shoes and stepping into another's, trying to view the world through their lens, however briefly. This shift in viewpoint can be transformative, turning potential conflicts into moments of connection and understanding. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a beacon of Stoic wisdom, encapsulated this philosophy beautifully. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had. These words resonate deeply, reminding us of the vast diversity of human experiences. Everyone has a unique journey, punctuated with their set of challenges, joys, sorrows, and lessons. What might seem trivial to one person could be a monumental challenge for another, and conversely, what appears to be an advantage in one's life could be the source of unseen challenges. Aurelius's words are a gentle nudge, urging us to practice humility, to recognize the privileges and advantages we might unknowingly possess, and to approach interactions with an open heart, free from judgments and preconceived notions. When empathy becomes a guiding principle, it doesn't just transform individual interactions. It has the potential to reshape societies. Every act of understanding, every moment of patience, sends out ripples, creating a more compassionate, connected, and harmonious world. As we navigate the intricate tapestry of life, the ancient wisdom of Stoicism offers us a guiding light, illuminating the path toward inner growth, resilience, and a deeper connection with the world around us. Let's briefly journey back through the 7 essential daily practices we've delved into today, each serving as a stepping stone towards a more Stoic way of life. Morning reflection. Starting our days anchored in gratitude, we remind ourselves of the teachings of Stoicism, setting a positive and purposeful tone for the day ahead. Embrace discomfort. By consciously choosing challenges, be they physical, mental, or emotional, we mold our minds, preparing them to face life's adversities with unyielding courage. Practice negative visualization. By mentally traversing scenarios of loss or adversity, we not only grow to appreciate the present more deeply, but also fortify our minds against the unpredictable currents of life. Take action with purpose. Stoicism beckons us to act not out of mere obligation or routine, but with intention and virtue, ensuring our days are filled with meaningful pursuits. Evening reflection. As the world quiets down, we turn inward, evaluating our day, discerning between what was and wasn't within our control, and laying the foundation for a wiser tomorrow. Journaling. This practice allows us to introspect, process emotions, and reflect on the Stoic principles, offering clarity amidst the chaos of daily life. Develop empathy and understanding. In recognizing the unseen battles everyone faces, we cultivate patience and kindness in our interactions, forging deeper connections with those around us. If you're new to these practices or find the breadth of them a tad overwhelming, take heart. The journey of Stoicism, like all meaningful journeys, doesn't demand perfection from the outset. It's a path of gradual progression. Start small, perhaps with a morning reflection or an evening journal entry. Over time, as you grow more attuned to the Stoic way, you can weave in more practices, shaping your daily routine in harmony with these age-old principles. And remember, while the tools and practices of Stoicism are profound, it's the consistent daily application that holds the true magic. It's in the day-to-day, the seemingly mundane moments, where the transformative power of Stoicism truly unfurls. Each day lived with purpose, reflection, and empathy doesn't just elevate that single day, but contributes to a life of depth, wisdom, and profound contentment. So, as you step forward from this moment, may you carry the essence of Stoicism with you, letting it guide, uplift, and transform your everyday into a testament of its enduring wisdom. In the cacophony of our modern lives, amidst the relentless beat of challenges, how often have we yearned for a shield, something to guard our spirit and grant us the resilience to march through the toughest storms? The answer, surprisingly, might lie not in the future, but in the distant past, in the pages of letters penned by a Stoic philosopher, Seneca. Resilience. It's a term that's often thrown around in motivational speeches and self-help books. But what does it truly mean to be resilient? Is it about never falling? Or is it about rising every time you fall? The Stoics had a unique perspective on this, viewing resilience not as an inborn trait, but as a skill, a muscle that can be developed and strengthened through practice, introspection, and most importantly, understanding. Through the treasure trove of Seneca's letters, we will discover that the Stoic concept of resilience is intertwined with our understanding of life, death, health, and the very nature of challenges themselves. These are not just static concepts, but dynamic forces that shape our existence. By understanding them, we don't just become resilient, we become empowered. Today, we'll explore 5 of Seneca's letters that specifically delve into the heart of human endurance. From confronting our baseless fears and truly understanding the nature of life's ultimate challenge, to realizing the profound relationship between our mental fortitude and physical well-being, these letters are packed with insights that are strikingly relevant to our contemporary challenges. Each letter, a reflection of Seneca's own experiences and observations, serves as a beacon illuminating the path to true resilience. They urge us to shift our perspective, to see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles but as opportunities for growth. They teach us that the true strength of a person is not revealed in moments of comfort and convenience, but in the face of adversity and uncertainty. Today's journey is not just about reading ancient letters. It's about internalizing a philosophy that can make us unshakable. It's about understanding the difference between being broken and being forged. And most importantly, it's about realizing that resilience is not a gift, it's a choice. So as we venture forth into this exploration, I invite you to open not just your ears, but your hearts and minds. For what we're about to uncover is not just ancient wisdom, but timeless tools for a life of strength, dignity, and unyielding resilience. Letter 13, on groundless fears. I know that you have plenty of spirit, for even before you began to equip yourself with maxims which were wholesome and potent to overcome obstacles, you were taking pride in your contest with fortune, and this is all the more true now that you have grappled with fortune and tested your powers. For our powers can never inspire in us implicit faith in ourselves, except when many difficulties have confronted us on this side and on that, and have occasionally even come to close quarters with us. It is only in this way that the true spirit can be tested, the spirit that will never consent to come under the jurisdiction of things external to ourselves. This is the touchstone of such a spirit. No prize fighter can go with high spirits into the strife if he has never been beaten black and blue. The only contestant who can confidently enter the lists is the man who has seen his own blood, who has felt his teeth rattle beneath his opponent's fist, who has been tripped and felt the full force of his adversary's charge, who has been downed in body but not in spirit, one who, as often as he falls, rises again with greater defiance than ever. So then, to keep up my figure, fortune has often in the past got the upper hand of you, and yet you have not surrendered, but have leaped up and stood your ground still more eagerly. For manliness gains much strength by being challenged. Nevertheless, if you approve, allow me to offer some additional safeguards by which you may fortify yourself. There are more things, Lucilius, likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. I am not speaking with you in the Stoic strain, but in my milder style, for it is our Stoic fashion to speak of all those things which provoke cries and groans as unimportant and beneath notice, but you and I must drop such great-sounding words, although heaven knows they are true enough. What I advise you to do is not to be unhappy before the crisis comes, since it may be that the dangers before which you paled as if they were threatening you will never come upon you. They certainly have not yet come. Accordingly, some things torment us more than they ought, some torment us before they ought, and some torment us when they ought not to torment us at all. We are in the habit of exaggerating or imagining or anticipating sorrow. The first of these three faults may be postponed for the present because the subject is under discussion and the case is still in court, so to speak. That which I should call trifling, you will maintain to be most serious, for of course I know that some men laugh while being flogged and that others wince at a box on the ear. We shall consider later whether these evils derive their power from their own strength or from our own weakness. Do me the favor, when men surround you and try to talk you into believing that you are unhappy, to consider not what you hear, but what you yourself feel, and to take counsel with your feelings and question yourself independently, because you know your own affairs better than anyone else does. Ask, is there any reason why these persons should condole with me? Why should they be worried or even fear some infection from me, as if troubles could be transmitted? Is there any evil involved, or is it a matter merely of ill report rather than an evil? Put the question voluntarily to yourself. Am I tormented without sufficient reason? Am I morose? And do I convert what is not an evil into what is an evil? You may retort with the question, how am I to know whether my sufferings are real or imaginary? Here is the rule for such matters. We are tormented either by things present, or by things to come, or by both. As to things present, the decision is easy. Suppose that your person enjoys freedom and health, and that you do not suffer from any external injury. As to what may happen to it in the future, we shall see later on. Today there is nothing wrong with it, but, you say, something will happen to it. First of all, consider whether your proofs of future trouble are sure, for it is more often the case that we are troubled by our apprehensions, and that we are mocked by that mocker rumor, which is wont to settle wars, but much more often settles individuals. Yes, my dear Lucilius, we agree too quickly with what people say. We do not put to the test those things which cause our fear. We do not examine into them. We blench and retreat just like soldiers who are forced to abandon their camp because of a dust cloud raised by stampeding cattle, or are thrown into a panic by the spreading of some unauthenticated rumor. And somehow or other it is the idle report that disturbs us most. For truth has its own definite boundaries, but that which arises from uncertainty is delivered over to guesswork and the irresponsible license of a frightened mind. That is why no fear is so ruinous and so uncontrollable as panic fear. For other fears are groundless, but this fear is witless. Let us then look carefully into the matter. It is likely that some troubles will befall us, but it is not a present fact. How often has the unexpected happened? How often has the expected never come to pass? And even though it is ordained to be, what does it avail to run out to meet your suffering? You will suffer soon enough when it arrives, so look forward meanwhile to better things. What shall you gain by doing this? Time. There will be many happenings meanwhile which will serve to postpone or end or pass on to another person, the trials which are near or even in your very presence. A fire has opened the way to flight. Men have been let down softly by a catastrophe. Sometimes the sword has been checked even at the victim's throat. Men have survived their own executioners. Even bad fortune is fickle. Perhaps it will come, perhaps not. In the meantime, it is not. So look forward to better things. The mind at times fashions for itself false shapes of evil when there are no signs that point to any evil. It twists into the worst construction some word of doubtful meaning, or it fancies some personal grudge to be more serious than it really is, considering not how angry the enemy is, but to what lengths he may go if he is angry. But life is not worth living, and there is no limit to our sorrows, if we indulge our fears to the greatest possible extent. In this matter, let prudence help you, and contend with a resolute spirit even when it is in plain sight. If you cannot do this, counter one weakness with another, and temper your fear with hope. There is nothing so certain among these objects of fear that it is not more certain still that things we dread sink into nothing, and that things we hope for mock us. Accordingly, weigh carefully your hopes as well as your fears, and whenever all the elements are in doubt, decide in your own favor. Believe what you prefer. And if fear wins a majority of the votes, incline in the other direction anyhow, and cease to harass your soul, reflecting continually that most mortals, even when no troubles are actually at hand, or are certainly to be expected in the future, become excited and disquieted. No one calls a halt on himself when he begins to be urged ahead, nor does he regulate his alarm according to the truth. No one says, "The author of the story is a fool, and he who has believed it is a fool, as well as he who fabricated it." We let ourselves drift with every breeze. We are frightened at uncertainties, just as if they were certain. We observe no moderation. The slightest thing turns the scales and throws us forthwith into a panic. But I am ashamed either to admonish you sternly, or to try to beguile you with such mild remedies. Let another say, "Perhaps the worst will not happen." You yourself must say, "Well, what if it does happen? Let us see who wins. Perhaps it happens for my best interests. It may be that such a death will shed credit upon my life." Socrates was ennobled by the hemlock draught. Wrench from Cato's hand his sword, the vindicator of liberty, and you deprive him of the greatest share of his glory. I am exhorting you far too long, since you need reminding rather than exhortation. The path on which I am leading you is not different from that on which your nature leads you. You were born to such conduct as I describe. Hence, there is all the more reason why you should increase and beautify the good that is in you. But now, to close my letter, I have only to stamp the usual seal upon it, in other words, to commit thereto some noble message to be delivered to you. The fool, with all his other faults, has this also: he is always getting ready to live. Reflect, my esteemed Lucilius, what this saying means, and you will see how revolting is the fickleness of men who lay down every day new foundations of life and begin to build up fresh hopes even at the brink of the grave. Look within your own mind for individual instances. You will think of old men who are preparing themselves at that very hour for a political career, or for travel, or for business. And what is baser than getting ready to live when you are already old? I should not name the author of this motto, except that it is somewhat unknown to fame and is not one of those popular sayings of Epicurus which I have allowed myself to praise and to appropriate. Farewell. Letter 24, on despising death. You write me that you are anxious about the result of a lawsuit with which an angry opponent is threatening you, and you expect me to advise you to picture to yourself a happier issue and to rest in the allurements of hope. Why indeed is it necessary to summon trouble, which must be endured soon enough when it has once arrived, or to anticipate trouble and ruin the present through fear of the future? It is indeed foolish to be unhappy now, because you may be unhappy at some future time, but I shall conduct you to peace of mind by another route. If you would put off all worry, assume that what you fear may happen will certainly happen in any event. Whatever the trouble may be, measure it in your own mind, and estimate the amount of your fear. You will thus understand that what you fear is either insignificant or short-lived, and you need not spend a long time in gathering illustrations which will strengthen you. Every epoch has produced them. Let your thoughts travel into any era of Roman or foreign history, and there will throng before you notable examples of high achievement or of high endeavor. If you lose this case, can anything more severe happen to you than being sent into exile or led to prison? Is there a worse fate that any man may fear than being burned or being killed? Name such penalties one by one, and mention the men who have scorned them. One does not need to hunt for them. It is simply a matter of selection. Sentence of conviction was borne by Rutilius as if the injustice of the decision were the only thing which annoyed him. Exile was endured by Metellus with courage, by Rutilius even with gladness, for the former consented to come back only because his country called him. The latter refused to return when Sulla summoned him, and nobody in those days said no to Sulla. Socrates in prison discoursed and declined to flee when certain persons gave him the opportunity. He remained there in order to free mankind from the fear of two most grievous things, death and imprisonment. Mucius put his hand into the fire. It is painful to be burned, but how much more painful to inflict such suffering upon oneself. Here was a man of no learning, not primed to face death and pain by any words of wisdom, and equipped only with the courage of a soldier who punished himself for his fruitless daring. He stood and watched his own right hand falling away piecemeal on the enemy's brazier, and nor did he withdraw the dissolving limb with its uncovered bones until his foe removed the fire. He might have accomplished something more successful in that camp, but never anything more brave. See how much keener a brave man is to lay hold of danger than a cruel man is to inflict it. Porsenna was more ready to pardon Mucius for wishing to slay him than Mucius to pardon himself for failing to slay Porsenna. Oh, say you, those stories have been droned to death in all the schools. Pretty soon, when you reach the topic on despising death, you will be telling me about Cato. But why should I not tell you about Cato? How he read Plato's book on that last glorious night, with a sword laid at his pillow. He had provided these two requisites for his last moments. The first, that he might have the will to die, and the second, that he might have the means. So he put his affairs in order, as well as one could put in order that which was ruined and near its end, and thought that he ought to see to it that no one should have the power to slay or the good fortune to save Cato. Drawing the sword, which he had kept unstained from all bloodshed against the final day, he cried, "Fortune, you have accomplished nothing by resisting all my endeavors. I have fought, till now, for my country's freedom and not for my own. I did not strive so doggedly to be free, but only to live among the free. Now, since the affairs of mankind are beyond hope, let Cato be withdrawn to safety." So saying, he inflicted a mortal wound upon his body. After the physicians had bound it up, Cato had less blood and less strength, but no less courage. Angered now not only at Caesar, but also at himself, he rallied his unarmed hands against his wound, and expelled, rather than dismissed, that noble soul which had been so defiant of all worldly power. I am not now heaping up these illustrations for the purpose of exercising my wit, but for the purpose of encouraging you to face that which is thought to be most terrible. And I shall encourage you all the more easily, by showing that not only resolute men have despised that moment when the soul breathes its last, but that certain persons, who were craven in other respects, have equaled in this regard the courage of the bravest. Take, for example, Scipio, the father-in-law of Gnaeus Pompeius. He was driven back upon the African coast by a headwind and saw his ship in the power of the enemy. He therefore pierced his body with a sword, and when they asked where the commander was, he replied, "All is well with the commander." These words brought him up to the level of his ancestors and suffered not the glory which fate gave to the Scipios in Africa to lose its continuity. It was a great deed to conquer Carthage, but a greater deed to conquer death. All is well with the commander. Ought a general to die otherwise, especially one of Cato's generals? I shall not refer you to history, or collect examples of those men who throughout the ages have despised death, for they are very many. Consider these times of ours, whose enervation and over-refinement call forth our complaints. They nevertheless will include men of every rank, of every lot in life and of every age, who have cut short their misfortunes by death. Believe me, Lucilius, death is so little to be feared that through its good offices nothing is to be feared. Therefore, when your enemy threatens, listen unconcernedly. Although your conscience makes you confident, yet since many things have weight which are outside your case, both hope for that which is utterly just and prepare yourself against that which is utterly unjust. Remember, however, before all else, to strip things of all that disturbs and confuses, and to see what each is at bottom. You will then comprehend that they contain nothing fearful except the actual fear. That you see happening to boys happens also to ourselves, who are only slightly bigger boys. When those whom they love, with whom they daily associate, with whom they play, appear with masks on, the boys are frightened out of their wits. We should strip the mask, not only from men, but from things, and restore to each object its own aspect. Why dost thou hold up before my eyes swords, fires, and a throng of executioners raging about thee? Take away all that vain show, behind which thou lurkest and scarest fools. Ah, thou art naught but death, whom only yesterday a manservant of mine and a maidservant did despise? Why dost thou again unfold and spread before me with all that great display, the whip and the rack? Why are those engines of torture made ready, one for each several member of the body, and all the other innumerable machines for tearing a man apart piecemeal? Away with all such stuff, which makes us numb with terror, and thou silence the groans, the cries, and the bitter shrieks ground out of the victim as he is torn on the rack. Forsooth thou art naught but pain, scorned by yonder gout-ridden wretch, endured by yonder dyspeptic in the midst of his dainties, borne bravely by the girl in travail. Slight thou art, if I can bear thee, short thou art, if I cannot bear thee. Ponder these words which you have often heard and often uttered. Moreover, prove by the result whether that which you have heard and uttered is true. For there is a very disgraceful charge often brought against our school, that we deal with the words and not with the deeds of philosophy. What, have you only at this moment learned that death is hanging over your head, at this moment exile, at this moment grief? You were born to these perils. Let us think of everything that can happen as something which will happen. I know that you have really done what I advise you to do. I now warn you not to drown your soul in these petty anxieties of yours. If you do, the soul will be dulled, and will have too little vigor left when the time comes for it to arise. Remove the mind from this case of yours to the case of men in general. Say to yourself that our petty bodies are mortal and frail. Pain can reach them from other sources than from wrong or the might of the stronger. Our pleasures themselves become torments. Banquets bring indigestion, carousals, paralysis of the muscles and palsy. Sensual habits affect the feet, the hands, and every joint of the body. I may become a poor man. I shall then be one among many. I may be exiled. I shall then regard myself as born in the place to which I shall be sent. They may put me in chains. What then? Am I free from bonds now? Behold this clogging burden of a body, to which nature has fettered me. I shall die, you say. You mean to say, I shall cease to run the risk of sickness. I shall cease to run the risk of imprisonment. I shall cease to run the risk of death. I am not so foolish as to go through at this juncture the arguments which Epicurus harps upon, and say that the terrors of the world below are idle, that Ixion does not whirl round on his wheel, that Sisyphus does not shoulder his stone uphill, that a man's entrails cannot be restored and devoured every day. No one is so childish as to fear Cerberus, or the shadows, or the spectral garb of those who are held together by naught but their unfleshed bones. Death either annihilates us or strips us bare. If we are then released, there remains the better part, after the burden has been withdrawn. If we are annihilated, nothing remains. Good and bad are alike removed. Allow me at this point to quote a verse of yours, first suggesting that, when you wrote it, you meant it for yourself no less than for others. It is ignoble to say one thing and mean another, and how much more ignoble to write one thing and mean another. I remember one day you were handling the well-known commonplace that we do not suddenly fall on death, but advance towards it by slight degrees. We die every day. For every day a little of our life is taken from us. Even when we are growing, our life is on the wane. We lose our childhood, then our boyhood, and then our youth. Counting even yesterday, all past time is lost time. The very day which we are now spending is shared between ourselves and death. It is not the last drop that empties the water clock, but all that which previously has flowed out. Similarly, the final hour when we cease to exist does not of itself bring death. It merely of itself completes the death process. We reach death at that moment, but we have been a long time on the way. In describing this situation, you said in your customary style, for you are always impressive, but never more pungent than when you are putting the truth in appropriate words. Not single is the death which comes. The death which takes us off is but the last of all. I prefer that you should read your own words rather than my letter, for then it will be clear to you that this death, of which we are afraid, is the last but not the only death. I see what you are looking for. You are asking what I have packed into my letter, what inspiriting saying from some mastermind, what useful precept. So I shall send you something dealing with this very subject which has been under discussion. Epicurus upbraids those who crave as much as those who shrink from death. It is absurd, he says, to run towards death because you are tired of life, when it is your manner of life that has made you run towards death. And in another passage, what is so absurd as to seek death, when it is through fear of death that you have robbed your life of peace? And you may add a third statement of the same stamp. Men are so thoughtless, nay so mad, that some, through fear of death, force themselves to die. Whichever of these ideas you ponder, you will strengthen your mind for the endurance alike of death and of life, for we need to be warned and strengthened in both directions, not to love or to hate life overmuch, even when reason advises us to make an end of it. The impulse is not to be adopted without reflection or at headlong speed. The grave and wise man should not beat a hasty retreat from life. He should make a becoming exit, and above all, he should avoid the weakness which has taken possession of so many, the lust for death. For just as there is an unreflecting tendency of the mind towards other things, so, my dear Lucilius, there is an unreflecting tendency towards death. This often seizes upon the noblest and most spirited men, as well as upon the craven and the abject. The former despise life, the latter find it irksome. Others also are moved by a satiety of doing and seeing the same things, and not so much by a hatred of life as because they are cloyed with it. We slip into this condition, while philosophy itself pushes us on, and we say, "How long must I endure the same things? Shall I continue to wake and sleep, be hungry and be cloyed, shiver and perspire? There is an end to nothing. All things are connected in a sort of circle. They flee and they are pursued. Night is close at the heels of day, day at the heels of night. Summer ends in autumn, winter rushes after autumn, and winter softens into spring. All nature in this way passes only to return. I do nothing new, I see nothing new. Sooner or later one sickens of this also. There are many who think that living is not painful, but superfluous. Farewell." Letter 71, on the Supreme Good. You are continually referring special questions to me, forgetting that a vast stretch of sea sunders us. Since, however, the value of advice depends mostly on the time when it is given, it must necessarily result that by the time my opinion on certain matters reaches you, the opposite opinion is the better. For advice conforms to circumstances, and our circumstances are carried along, or rather whirled along. Accordingly, advice should be produced at short notice, and even this is too late. It should grow while we work, as the saying is. And I propose to show you how you may discover the method. As often as you wish to know what is to be avoided or what is to be sought, consider its relation to the supreme good, to the purpose of your whole life. For whatever we do ought to be in harmony with this. No man can set in order the details unless he has already set before himself the chief purpose of his life. The artist may have his colors all prepared, but he cannot produce a likeness unless he has already made up his mind what he wishes to paint. The reason we make mistakes is because we all consider the parts of life, but never life as a whole. The archer must know what he is seeking to hit, then he must aim and control the weapon by his skill. Our plans miscarry because they have no aim. When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind. Chance must necessarily have great influence over our lives, because we live by chance. It is the case with certain men, however, that they do not know that they know certain things. Just as we often go searching for those who stand beside us, so we are apt to forget that the goal of the supreme good lies near us. To infer the nature of this supreme good, one does not need many words or any roundabout discussion. It should be pointed out with the forefinger, so to speak, and not be dissipated into many parts. For what good is there in breaking it up into tiny bits, when you can say, the supreme good is that which is honorable? Besides, and you may be still more surprised at this, that which is honorable is the only good. All other goods are alloyed and debased. If you once convince yourself of this, and if you come to love virtue devotedly, for mere loving is not enough, anything that has been touched by virtue will be fraught with blessing and prosperity for you, no matter how it shall be regarded by others. Torture, if only as you lie suffering, you are more calm in mind than your very torturer. Illness, if only you curse not fortune and yield not to the disease. In short, all those things which others regard as ills will become manageable and will end in good if you succeed in rising above them. Let this once be clear, that there is nothing good except that which is honorable, and all hardships will have a just title to the name of goods, when once virtue has made them honorable. Many think that we Stoics are holding out expectations greater than our human lot admits of, and they have a right to think so, for they have regard to the body only. But let them turn back to the soul, and they will soon measure man by the standard of God. Rouse yourself, most excellent Lucilius, and leave off all this wordplay of the philosophers, who reduce a most glorious subject to a matter of syllables, and lower and wear out the soul by teaching fragments. Then you will become like the men who discovered these precepts, instead of those who by their teaching do their best to make philosophy seem difficult rather than great. Socrates, who recalled the whole of philosophy to rules of conduct, and asserted that the highest wisdom consisted in distinguishing between good and evil, said, "Follow these rules, if my words carry weight with you, in order that you may be happy, and let some men think you even a fool. Allow any man who so desires to insult you and work you wrong, but if only virtue dwells with you, you will suffer nothing. If you wish to be happy, if you would be in good faith a good man, let one person or another despise you. No man can accomplish this unless he has come to regard all goods as equal, for the reason that no good exists without that which is honorable, and that which is honorable is in every case equal." You may say, what then? Is there no difference between Cato's being elected praetor and his failure at the polls, or whether Cato is conquered or conqueror in the battle line of Pharsalia? And when Cato could not be defeated, though his party met defeat, was not this goodness of his equal to that which would have been his if he had returned victorious to his native land and arranged a peace? Of course it was, for it is by the same virtue that evil fortune is overcome and good fortune is controlled. Virtue, however, cannot be increased or decreased. Its stature is uniform. But, you will object, Gnaeus Pompey will lose his army. The patricians, those noblest patterns of the state's creation, and the front-rank men of Pompey's party, a senate under arms, will be routed in a single engagement. The ruins of that great oligarchy will be scattered all over the world. One division will fall in Egypt, another in Africa, and another in Spain, and the poor state will not be allowed even the privilege of being ruined once for all. Yes, all this may happen, Juba's familiarity with every position in his own kingdom may be of no avail to him, of no avail the resolute bravery of his people when fighting for their king. Even the men of Utica, crushed by their troubles, may waver in their allegiance, and the good fortune which ever attended men of the name of Scipio may desert Scipio in Africa. But long ago destiny saw to it that Cato should come to no harm. He was conquered in spite of it all. Well, you may include this among Cato's failures. Cato will bear with an equally stout heart anything that thwarts him of his victory, as he bore that which thwarted him of his praetorship. The day whereon he failed of election, he spent in play. The night wherein he intended to die, he spent in reading. He regarded in the same light both the loss of his praetorship and the loss of his life. He had convinced himself that he ought to endure anything which might happen. Why should he not suffer, bravely and calmly, a change in the government? For what is free from the risk of change? Neither earth, nor sky, nor the whole fabric of our universe, though it be controlled by the hand of God. It will not always preserve its present order. It will be thrown from its course in days to come. All things move in accord with their appointed times. They are destined to be born, to grow, and to be destroyed. The stars which you see moving above us, and this seemingly immovable earth to which we cling and on which we are set, will be consumed and will cease to exist. There is nothing that does not have its old age. The intervals are merely unequal, at which nature sends forth all these things towards the same goal. Whatever is will cease to be, and yet it will not perish, but will be resolved into its elements. To our minds, this process means perishing, for we behold only that which is nearest. Our sluggish mind, under allegiance to the body, does not penetrate to bournes beyond. Were it not so, the mind would endure with greater courage its own ending and that of its possessions, if only it could hope that life and death, like the whole universe about us, go by turns, that whatever has been put together is broken up again, that whatever has been broken up is put together again, and that the eternal craftsmanship of God, who controls all things, is working at this task. Therefore the wise man will say just what a Marcus Cato would say, after reviewing his past life. The whole race of man, both that which is and that which is to be, is condemned to die. Of all the cities that at any time have held sway over the world, and of all that have been the splendid ornaments of empires not their own, men shall someday ask where they were, and they shall be swept away by destructions of various kinds. Some shall be ruined by wars, others shall be wasted away by inactivity, and by the kind of peace which ends in sloth, or by that vice which is fraught with destruction even for mighty dynasties, luxury. All these fertile plains shall be buried out of sight by a sudden overflowing of the sea, or a slipping of the soil as it settles to lower levels, shall draw them suddenly into a yawning chasm. Why then should I be angry or feel sorrow, if I precede the general destruction by a tiny interval of time? Let great souls comply with God's wishes, and suffer unhesitatingly whatever fate the law of the universe ordains. For the soul at death is either sent forth into a better life, destined to dwell with deity amid greater radiance and calm, or else, at least without suffering any harm to itself, it will be mingled with nature again, and will return to the universe. Therefore Cato's honorable death was no less a good than his honorable life, since virtue admits of no stretching. Socrates used to say that verity and virtue were the same. Just as truth does not grow, so neither does virtue grow, for it has its due proportions and is complete. You need not therefore wonder that goods are equal, both those which are to be deliberately chosen and those which circumstances have imposed. For if you once adopt the view that they are unequal, deeming, for instance, a brave endurance of torture as among the lesser goods, you will be including it among the evils also. You will pronounce Socrates unhappy in his prison, Cato unhappy when he reopens his wounds with more courage than he allowed in inflicting them, and Regulus, the most ill-starred of all, when he pays the penalty for keeping his word even with his enemies. And yet no man, even the most effeminate person in the world, has ever dared to maintain such an opinion. For though such persons deny that a man like Regulus is happy, yet for all that they also deny that he is wretched. The earlier academics do indeed admit that a man is happy even amid such tortures, but do not admit that he is completely or fully happy. With this view we cannot in any wise agree. For unless a man is happy, he has not attained the supreme good, and the good which is supreme admits of no higher degree. If only virtue exists within this man, and if adversity does not impair his virtue, and if, though the body be injured, the virtue abides unharmed, and it does abide. For I understand virtue to be high-spirited and exalted, so that it is aroused by anything that molests it. This spirit, which young men of noble breeding often assume when they are so deeply stirred by the beauty of some honorable object that they despise all the gifts of chance, is assuredly infused in us and communicated to us by wisdom. Wisdom will bring the conviction that there is but one good, that which is honorable, that this can neither be shortened nor extended, any more than a carpenter's rule with which straight lines are tested can be bent. Any change in the rule means spoiling the straight line. Applying therefore this same figure to virtue, we shall say, virtue also is straight and admits of no bending. What can be made more tense than a thing which is already rigid? Such is virtue, which passes judgment on everything, but nothing passes judgment on virtue. And if this rule, virtue, cannot itself be made more straight, neither can the things created by virtue be in one case straighter, and in another less straight. For they must necessarily correspond to virtue, hence they are equal. What, you say, do you call reclining at a banquet and submitting to torture equally good? Does this seem surprising to you? You may be still more surprised at the following, that reclining at a banquet is an evil, while reclining on the rack is a good, if the former act is done in a shameful, and the latter in an honorable manner. It is not the material that makes these actions good or bad, it is the virtue. All acts in which virtue has disclosed itself are of the same measure and value. At this moment the man who measures the souls of all men by his own is shaking his fist in my face, because I hold that there is a parity between the goods involved in the case of one who passes sentence honorably and of one who suffers sentence honorably, or because I hold that there is a parity between the goods of one who celebrates a triumph and of one who, unconquered in spirit, is carried before the victor's chariot. For such critics think that whatever they themselves cannot do is not done. They pass judgment on virtue in the light of their own weaknesses. Why do you marvel if it helps a man, and on occasion even pleases him, to be burned, wounded, slain, or bound in prison? To a luxurious man a simple life is a penalty. To a lazy man work is punishment. The dandy pities the diligent man. To the slothful studies are torture. Similarly, we regard those things with respect to which we are all infirm of disposition as hard and beyond endurance, forgetting what a torment it is to many men to abstain from wine, or to be routed from their beds at break of day. These actions are not essentially difficult. It is we ourselves that are soft and flabby. We must pass judgment concerning great matters with greatness of soul. Otherwise, that which is really our fault will seem to be their fault. So it is that certain objects which are perfectly straight, when sunk in water, appear to the onlooker as bent or broken off. It matters not only what you see, but with what eyes you see it. Our souls are too dull of vision to perceive the truth. But give me an unspoiled and sturdy-minded young man, he will pronounce more fortunate one who sustains on unbending shoulders the whole weight of adversity, who stands out superior to fortune. It is not a cause for wonder that one is not tossed about when the weather is calm. Reserve your wonderment for cases where a man is lifted up when all others sink, and keeps his footing when all others are prostrate. What element of evil is there in torture and in the other things which we call hardships? It seems to me that there is this evil, that the mind sags and bends and collapses. But none of these things can happen to the sage. He stands erect under any load. Nothing can subdue him. Nothing that must be endured annoys him. For he does not complain that he has been struck by that which can strike any man. He knows his own strength. He knows that he was born to carry burdens. I do not withdraw the wise man from the category of man, nor do I deny to him the sense of pain, as though he were a rock that has no feelings at all. I remember that he is made up of two parts. The one part is irrational. It is this that may be bitten, burned, or hurt. The other part is rational. It is this which holds resolutely to opinions, is courageous and unconquerable. In the latter is situated man's supreme good. Before this is completely attained, the mind wavers in uncertainty. Only when it is fully achieved is the mind fixed and steady. And so when one has just begun, or is on one's way to the heights and is cultivating virtue, or even if one is drawing near the perfect good but has not yet put the finishing touch upon it, one will retrograde at times, and there will be a certain slackening of mental effort. For such a man has not yet traversed the doubtful ground. He is still standing in slippery places. But the happy man whose virtue is complete loves himself most of all when his bravery has been submitted to the severest test, and when he not only endures but welcomes that which all other men regard with fear, if it is the price which he must pay for the performance of a duty which honor imposes. And he greatly prefers to have men say of him, "How much more noble," rather than "How much more lucky." And now I have reached the point to which your patient waiting summons me. You must not think that our human virtue transcends nature. The wise man will tremble, will feel pain, will turn pale. For all these are sensations of the body. Where then is the abode of utter distress, of that which is truly an evil? In the other part of us, no doubt. If it is the mind that these trials drag down, forced to a confession of its servitude and caused to regret its existence. The wise man indeed overcomes fortune by his virtue, but many who profess wisdom are sometimes frightened by the most unsubstantial threats. And at this stage, it is a mistake on our part to make the same demands upon the wise man and upon the learner. I still exhort myself to do that which I recommend, but my exhortations are not yet followed. And even if this were the case, I should not have these principles so ready for practice or so well trained that they would rush to my assistance in every crisis. Just as wool takes up certain colors at once, while there are others which it will not absorb unless it is soaked and steeped in them many times, so other systems of doctrine can be immediately applied by men's minds after once being accepted. But this system of which I speak, unless it has gone deep and has sunk in for a long time, and has not merely colored, but thoroughly permeated the soul, does not fulfill any of its promises. The matter can be imparted quickly and in very few words. Virtue is the only good. At any rate, there is no good without virtue, and virtue itself is situated in our nobler part, that is, the rational part. And what will this virtue be? A true and never-swerving judgment, for therefrom will spring all mental impulses, and by its agency every external appearance that stirs our impulses will be clarified. It will be in keeping with this judgment to judge all things that have been colored by virtue as goods and as equal goods. Bodily goods are, to be sure, good for the body, but they are not absolutely good. There will indeed be some value in them, but they will possess no genuine merit, for they will differ greatly. Some will be less, others greater. And we are constrained to acknowledge that there are great differences among the very followers of wisdom. One man has already made so much progress that he dares to raise his eyes and look fortune in the face, but not persistently, for his eyes soon drop, dazzled by her overwhelming splendor. Another has made so much progress that he is able to match glances with her, that is, unless he has already reached the summit and is full of confidence. That which is short of perfection must necessarily be unsteady, at one time progressing, at another slipping or growing faint, and it will surely slip back unless it keeps struggling ahead. For if a man slackens at all in zeal and faithful application, he must retrograde. No one can resume his progress at the point where he left off. Therefore, let us press on and persevere. There remains much more of the road than we have put behind us, but the greater part of progress is the desire to progress. I fully understand what this task is. It is a thing which I desire, and I desire it with all my heart. I see that you also have been aroused and are hastening with great zeal towards infinite beauty. Let us then hasten. Only on these terms will life be a boon to us. Otherwise there is delay, and indeed disgraceful delay, while we busy ourselves with revolting things. Let us see to it that all time belongs to us. This, however, cannot be unless first of all our own selves begin to belong to us. And when will it be our privilege to despise both kinds of fortune? When will it be our privilege, after all the passions have been subdued and brought under our own control, to utter the words, "I have conquered"? Do you ask me whom I have conquered? Neither the Persians nor the far-off Medes, nor any warlike race that lies beyond the Dahai. Not these, but greed, ambition, and the fear of death that has conquered the conquerors of the world. Letter 78, on the healing power of the mind. That you are frequently troubled by the snuffling of catarrh and by short attacks of fever which follow after long and chronic catarrhal seizures, I am sorry to hear, particularly because I have experienced this sort of illness myself and scorned it in its early stages. For when I was still young, I could put up with hardships and show a bold front to illness. But I finally succumbed and arrived at such a state that I could do nothing but snuffle, reduced as I was to the extremity of thinness. I often entertained the impulse of ending my life then and there, but the thought of my kind old father kept me back. For I reflected not how bravely I had the power to die, but how little power he had to bear bravely the loss of me, and so I commanded myself to live, for sometimes it is an act of bravery even to live. Now I shall tell you what consoled me during those days, stating at the outset that these very aids to my peace of mind were as efficacious as medicine. Honorable consolation results in a cure, and whatever has uplifted the soul helps the body also. My studies were my salvation. I place it to the credit of philosophy that I recovered and regained my strength. I owe my life to philosophy, and that is the least of my obligations. My friends too helped me greatly towards good health. I used to be comforted by their cheering words, by the hours they spent at my bedside, and by their conversation. Nothing, my excellent Ducilius, refreshes and aids a sick man so much as the affection of his friends. Nothing so steals away the expectation and the fear of death. In fact, I could not believe that if they survived me, I should be dying at all. Yes, I repeat, it seemed to me that I should continue to live, not with them, but through them. I imagined myself not to be yielding up my soul, but to be making it over to them. All these things gave me the inclination to succor myself and to endure any torture. Besides, it is a most miserable state to have lost one's zest for dying, and to have no zest in living. These, then, are the remedies to which you should have recourse. The physician will prescribe your walks and your exercise. He will warn you not to become addicted to idleness, as is the tendency of the inactive invalid. He will order you to read in a louder voice, and to exercise your lungs the passages and cavity of which are affected, or to sail and shake up your bowels by a little mild motion. He will recommend the proper food, and the suitable time for aiding your strength with wine, or refraining from it, in order to keep your cough from being irritated and hacking. But as for me, my counsel to you is this, and it is a cure, not merely of this disease of yours, but of your whole life: despise death. There is no sorrow in the world when we have escaped from the fear of death. There are these three serious elements in every disease: fear of death, bodily pain, and interruption of pleasures. Concerning death enough has been said, and I shall add only a word. This fear is not a fear of disease, but a fear of nature. Disease has often postponed death, and a vision of dying has been many a man's salvation. You will die, not because you are ill, but because you are alive. Even when you have been cured, the same end awaits you. When you have recovered, it will be not death, but ill health that you have escaped. Let us now return to the consideration of the characteristic disadvantage of disease. It is accompanied by great suffering. The suffering, however, is rendered endurable by interruptions, for the strain of extreme pain must come to an end. No man can suffer both severely and for a long time. Nature, who loves us most tenderly, has so constituted us as to make pain either endurable or short. The severest pains have their seat in the most slender parts of our body. Nerves, joints, and any other of the narrow passages hurt most cruelly when they have developed trouble within their contracted spaces. But these parts soon become numb, and by reason of the pain itself lose the sensation of pain, whether because the life force, when checked in its natural course and changed for the worse, loses the peculiar power through which it thrives and through which it warns us, or because the diseased humors of the body, when they cease to have a place into which they may flow, are thrown back upon themselves and deprive of sensation the parts where they have caused congestion. So gout, both in the feet and in the hands, and all pain in the vertebrae and in the nerves, have their intervals of rest at the times when they have dulled the parts which they before had tortured. The first twinges in all such cases are what cause the distress, and their onset is checked by lapse of time, so that there is an end of pain when numbness has set in. Pain in the teeth, eyes, and ears is most acute for the very reason that it begins among the narrow spaces of the body, no less acute indeed than in the head itself. But if it is more violent than usual, it turns to delirium and stupor. This is, accordingly, a consolation for excessive pain, that you cannot help ceasing to feel it if you feel it to excess. The reason, however, why the inexperienced are impatient when their bodies suffer is that they have not accustomed themselves to be contented in spirit. They have been closely associated with the body. Therefore, a high-minded and sensible man divorces soul from body and dwells much with the better or divine part, and only as far as he must with this complaining and frail portion. But it is a hardship, men say, to do without our customary pleasures, to fast, to feel thirst and hunger. These are indeed serious when one first abstains from them. Later the desire dies down, because the appetites themselves which lead to desire are wearied and forsake us. Then the stomach becomes petulant, then the food which we craved before becomes hateful. Our very wants die away. But there is no bitterness in doing without that which you have ceased to desire. Moreover, every pain sometimes stops, or at any rate, slackens. Moreover, one may take precautions against its return, and when it threatens, may check it by means of remedies. Every variety of pain has its premonitory symptoms. This is true at any rate of pain that is habitual and recurrent. One can endure the suffering which disease entails if one has come to regard its results with scorn. But do not of your own accord make your troubles heavier to bear and burden yourself with complaining. Pain is slight if opinion has added nothing to it. But if, on the other hand, you begin to encourage yourself and say it is nothing, a trifling matter at most, keep a stout heart and it will soon cease. Then in thinking it slight, you will make it slight. Everything depends on opinion, ambition, luxury, greed. Hark back to opinion. It is according to opinion that we suffer. A man is as wretched as he has convinced himself that he is. I hold that we should do away with complaint about past sufferings, and with all language like this. None has ever been worse off than I. What sufferings, what evils have I endured? No one has thought that I shall recover. How often have my family bewailed me, and the physicians given me over? Men who are placed on the rack are not torn asunder with such agony. However, even if all this is true, it is over and gone. What benefit is there in reviewing past sufferings, and in being unhappy just because once you were unhappy? Besides, everyone adds much to his own ills and tells lies to himself. And that which was bitter to bear is pleasant to have borne. It is natural to rejoice at the ending of one's ills. Two elements must therefore be rooted out once for all: the fear of future suffering and the recollection of past suffering, since the latter no longer concerns me and the former concerns me not yet. But when set in the very midst of troubles, one should say, perchance someday the memory of this sorrow will even bring delight. Let such a man fight against them with all his might. If he once gives way, he will be vanquished. But if he strives against his sufferings, he will conquer. As it is, however, what most men do is to drag down upon their own heads a falling ruin which they ought to try to support. If you begin to withdraw your support from that which thrusts toward you and totters and is ready to plunge, it will follow you and lean more heavily upon you. But if you hold your ground and make up your mind to push against it, it will be forced back. What blows do athletes receive on their faces and all over their bodies? Nevertheless, through their desire for fame, they endure every torture, and they undergo these things not only because they are fighting, but in order to be able to fight. Their very training means torture. So let us also win the way to victory in all our struggles. For the reward is not a garland or a palm or a trumpeter who calls for silence at the proclamation of our names, but rather virtue, steadfastness of soul, and a peace that is won for all time, if fortune has once been utterly vanquished in any combat. You say, I feel severe pain. What then? Are you relieved from feeling it if you endure it like a woman? Just as an enemy is more dangerous to a retreating army, so every trouble that fortune brings attacks us all the harder if we yield and turn our backs. But the trouble is serious. What? Is it for this purpose that we are strong? That we may have light burdens to bear? Would you have your illness long drawn out, or would you have it quick and short? If it is long, it means a respite, allows you a period for resting yourself, bestows upon you the boon of time in plenty. As it arises, so it must also subside. A short and rapid illness will do one of two things. It will quench or be quenched. And what difference does it make whether it is not or I am not? In either case, there is an end of pain. This too will help to turn the mind aside to thoughts of other things and thus to depart from pain. Call to mind what honorable or brave deeds you have done. Consider the good side of your own life. Run over in your memory those things which you have particularly admired. Then think of all the brave men who have conquered pain, of him who continued to read his book as he allowed the cutting out of varicose veins, of him who did not cease to smile, though that very smile so enraged his torturers that they tried upon him every instrument of their cruelty. If pain can be conquered by a smile, will it not be conquered by reason? You may tell me now of whatever you like of colds, bad coughing spells that bring up parts of our entrails, fever that parches our very vitals, thirst, limbs so twisted that the joints protrude in different directions. Yet worse than these are the stake, the rack, the red-hot plates, the instrument that reopens wounds while the wounds themselves are still swollen, and that drives their imprint still deeper. And nevertheless there have been men who have not uttered a moan amid these tortures. More yet, says the torturer, but the victim has not begged for release. More yet, he says again, but no answer has come. More yet. The victim has smiled, and heartily too. Can you not bring yourself after an example like this to make a mock at pain? But, you object, my illness does not allow me to be doing anything. It has withdrawn me from all my duties. It is your body that is hampered by ill health, and not your soul as well. It is for this reason that it clogs the feet of the runner, and will hinder the handiwork of the cobbler or the artisan. But if your soul be habitually in practice, you will plead and teach, listen and learn, investigate and meditate. What more is necessary? Do you think that you are doing nothing if you possess self-control in your illness? You will be showing that a disease can be overcome, or at any rate endured. There is, I assure you, a place for virtue, even upon a bed of sickness. It is not only the sword and the battle line that prove the soul alert and unconquered by fear. A man can display bravery even when wrapped in his bedclothes. You have something to do. Wrestle bravely with disease. If it shall compel you to nothing, beguile you to nothing, it is a notable example that you display. Oh, what ample matter were there for renown, if we could have spectators of our sickness. Be your own spectator, seek your own applause. Again, there are two kinds of pleasures. Disease checks the pleasures of the body, but does not do away with them. Nay, if the truth is to be considered, it serves to excite them. For the thirstier a man is, the more he enjoys a drink. The hungrier he is, the more pleasure he takes in food. Whatever falls to one's lot, after a period of abstinence, is welcomed with greater zest. The other kind, however, the pleasures of the mind, which are higher and less uncertain, no physician can refuse to the sick man. Whoever seeks these, and knows well what they are, scorns all the blandishments of the senses. Men say, poor sick fellow, but why? Is it because he does not mix snow with his wine, or because he does not revive the chill of his drink, mixed as it is in a good-sized bowl, by chipping ice into it, or because he does not have lucrine oysters opened fresh at his table, or because there is no din of cooks about his dining hall as they bring in their very cooking apparatus along with their viands? For luxury has already devised this fashion of having the kitchen accompany the dinner, so that the food may not grow lukewarm or fail to be hot enough for a palate which has already become hardened. poor sick fellow. He will eat as much as he can digest. There will be no boar lying before his eyes, banished from the table as if it were a common meat, and on his sideboard there will be heaped together no breast meat of birds, because it sickens him to see birds served whole. But what evil has been done to you? You will dine like a sick man, nay, sometimes like a sound man. All these things, however, can be easily endured: gruel, warm water, and anything else that seems insupportable to a fastidious man, to one who is wallowing in luxury, sick in soul rather than in body, if only we cease to shudder at death. And we shall cease, if once we have gained a knowledge of the limits of good and evil. Then and then only, life will not weary us, neither will death make us afraid. For surfeit of self can never seize upon a life that surveys all the things which are manifold, great, divine. Only idle leisure is wont to make men hate their lives. To one who roams through the universe, the truth can never pall. It will be the untruths that will cloy. And on the other hand, if death comes near with its summons, even though it be untimely in its arrival, though it cut one off in one's prime, a man has had a taste of all that the longest life can give. Such a man has in great measure come to understand the universe. He knows that honorable things do not depend on time for their growth, but any life must seem short to those who measure its length by pleasures which are empty and for that reason unbounded. Refresh yourself with such thoughts as these, and meanwhile reserve some hours for our letters. There will come a time when we shall be united again and brought together. However short this time may be, we shall make it long by knowing how to employ it. For as Posidonius says, a single day among the learned lasts longer than the longest life of the ignorant. Meanwhile, hold fast to this thought, and grip it close. Yield not to adversity, trust not to prosperity. Keep before your eyes the full scope of fortune's power, as if she would surely do whatever is in her power to do. That which has been long expected comes more gently. Farewell. Letter 104, on care of health and peace of mind. I have run off to my villa at Nomentum. For what purpose do you suppose? To escape the city? No, to shake off a fever which was surely working its way into my system. It had already got a grip upon me. My physician kept insisting that when the circulation was upset and irregular, disturbing the natural poise, the disease was underway. I therefore ordered my carriage to be made ready at once, and insisted on departing in spite of my wife Paulina's effort to stop me. For I remembered Master Gallio's words, when he began to develop a fever in Achaia, and took ship at once, insisting that the disease was not of the body, but of the place. That is what I remarked to my dear Paulina, who always urges me to take care of my health. I know that her very life breath comes and goes with my own, and I am beginning in my solicitude for her to be solicitous for myself. And although old age has made me braver to bear many things, I am gradually losing this boon that old age bestows. For it comes into my mind that in this old man there is a youth also, and youth needs tenderness. Therefore, since I cannot prevail upon her to love me any more heroically, she prevails upon me to cherish myself more carefully. For one must indulge genuine emotions. Sometimes, even in spite of weighty reasons, the breath of life must be called back and kept at our very lips, even at the price of great suffering, for the sake of those whom we hold dear, because the good man should not live as long as it pleases him, but as long as he ought. He who does not value his wife or his friend highly enough to linger longer in life, he who obstinately persists in dying, is a voluptuary. The soul should also enforce this command upon itself whenever the needs of one's relatives require. It should pause and humor those near and dear, not only when it desires, but even when it has begun to die. It gives proof of a great heart to return to life for the sake of others, and noble men have often done this. But this procedure also, I believe, indicates the highest type of kindness, that although the greatest advantage of old age is the opportunity to be more negligent regarding self-preservation and to use life more adventurously, one should watch over one's old age with still greater care if one knows that such action is pleasing, useful, or desirable in the eyes of a person whom one holds dear. This is also a source of no mean joy and profit. For what is sweeter than to be so valued by one's wife that one becomes more valuable to oneself for this reason? Hence, my dear Paulina is able to make me responsible, not only for her fears, but also for my own. So you are curious to know the outcome of this prescription of travel? As soon as I escaped from the oppressive atmosphere of the city, and from that awful odor of reeking kitchens which, when in use, pour forth a ruinous mess of steam and soot, I perceived at once that my health was mending. And how much stronger do you think I felt when I reached my vineyards? Being, so to speak, let out to pasture, I regularly walked into my meals, so I am my old self again, feeling now no wavering languor in my system and no sluggishness in my brain. I am beginning to work with all my energy, but the mere place avails little for this purpose unless the mind is fully master of itself and can at its pleasure find seclusion even in the midst of business. The man, however, who is always selecting resorts and hunting for leisure, will find something to distract his mind in every place. Socrates is reported to have replied, when a certain person complained of having received no benefit from his travels, "It serves you right, you traveled in your own company." Oh, what a blessing it would be for some men to wander away from themselves. As it is, they cause themselves vexation, worry, demoralization, and fear. What profit is there in crossing the sea and in going from one city to another? If you would escape your troubles, you need not another place but another personality. Perhaps you have reached Athens, or perhaps Rhodes. Choose any state you fancy. How does it matter what its character may be? You will be bringing to it your own. Suppose that you hold wealth to be a good. Poverty will then distress you, and, which is most pitiable, it will be an imaginary poverty. For you may be rich, and nevertheless, because your neighbor is richer, you suppose yourself to be poor exactly by the same amount in which you fall short of your neighbor. You may deem official position a good. You will be vexed at another's appointment or reappointment to the consulship. You will be jealous whenever you see a name several times in the state records. Your ambition will be so frenzied that you will regard yourself last in the race if there is anyone in front of you. Or you may rate death as the worst of evils, although there is really no evil therein except that which precedes death's coming, fear. You will be frightened out of your wits, not only by real but by fancied dangers, and will be tossed forever on the sea of illusion. What benefit will it be to have threaded all the towns of Argolis, a fugitive through midmost press of foes? For peace itself will furnish further apprehension. Even in the midst of safety you will have no confidence if your mind has once been given a shock. Once it has acquired the habit of blind panic, it is incapable of providing even for its own safety. For it does not avoid danger, but runs away. Yet we are more exposed to danger when we turn our backs. You may judge it the most grievous of ills to lose any of those you love, while all the same this would be no less foolish than weeping, because the trees which charm your eye and adorn your home lose their foliage. Regard everything that pleases you as if it were a flourishing plant. Make the most of it while it is in leaf, for different plants at different seasons must fall and die. But just as the loss of leaves is a light thing, because they are born afresh, so it is with the loss of those whom you love, and regard as the delight of your life, for they can be replaced even though they cannot be born afresh. New friends, however, will not be the same. No, nor will you yourself remain the same. You change with every day and every hour. But in other men you more readily see what time plunders. In your own case the change is hidden, because it will not take place visibly. Others are snatched from sight. We ourselves are being stealthily filched away from ourselves. You will not think about any of these problems, nor will you apply remedies to these wounds. You will of your own volition be sowing a crop of trouble by alternate hoping and despairing. If you are wise, mingle these two elements. Do not hope without despair, or despair without hope. What benefit has travel of itself ever been able to give anyone? No restraint upon pleasure, no bridling of desire, no checking of bad temper, no crushing of the wild assaults of passion, no opportunity to rid the soul of evil. Traveling cannot give us judgment, or shake off our errors. It merely holds our attention for a moment by a certain novelty, as children pause to wonder at something unfamiliar. Besides, it irritates us through the wavering of a mind which is suffering from an acute attack of sickness. The very motion makes it more fitful and nervous. Hence, the spots we had sought most eagerly, we quit still more eagerly, like birds that flit and are off as soon as they have alighted. What travel will give is familiarity with other nations. It will reveal to you mountains of strange shape, or unfamiliar tracts of plain, or valleys that are watered by ever-flowing springs, or the characteristics of some river that comes to our attention. We observe how the Nile rises and swells in summer, or how the Tigris disappears, runs underground through hidden spaces, and then appears with unabated sweep, or how the Maeander, that oft-rehearsed theme and plaything of the poets, turns in frequent bendings, and often in winding comes close to its own channel before resuming its course. But this sort of information will not make better or sounder men of us. We ought rather to spend our time in study, and to cultivate those who are masters of wisdom, learning something which has been investigated but not settled. By this means the mind can be relieved of a most wretched serfdom, and won over to freedom. Indeed, as long as you are ignorant of what you should avoid or seek, or of what is necessary or superfluous, or of what is right or wrong, you will not be traveling, but merely wandering. There will be no benefit to you in this hurrying to and fro, for you are traveling with your emotions and are followed by your afflictions. Would that they were indeed following you. In that case, they would be farther away, as it is you are carrying and not leading them. Hence they press about you on all sides, continually chafing and annoying you. It is medicine, not scenery, for which the sick man must go a-searching. Suppose that someone has broken a leg or dislocated a joint. He does not take carriage or ship for other regions, but he calls in the physician to set the fractured limb, or to move it back to its proper place in the socket. What then? When the spirit is broken or wrenched in so many places, do you think that change of place can heal it? The complaint is too deep-seated to be cured by a journey. Travel does not make a physician or an orator. No art is acquired by merely living in a certain place. Where lies the truth then? Can wisdom, the greatest of all the arts, be picked up on a journey? I assure you, travel as far as you like. You can never establish yourself beyond the reach of desire, beyond the reach of bad temper, or beyond the reach of fear. Had it been so, the human race would long ago have banded together and made a pilgrimage to the spot. Such ills, as long as you carry with you their causes, will load you down and worry you to skin and bone in your wanderings over land and sea. Do you wonder that it is of no use to run away from them? That from which you are running is within you. Accordingly, reform your own self, get the burden off your own shoulders, and keep within safe limits the cravings which ought to be removed. Wipe out from your soul all trace of sin. If you would enjoy your travels, make healthy the companion of your travels. As long as this companion is avaricious and mean, greed will stick to you, and while you consort with an overbearing man, your puffed-up ways will also stick close. Live with a hangman, and you will never be rid of your cruelty. If an adulterer be your clubmate, he will kindle the baser passions. If you would be stripped of your faults, leave far behind you the patterns of the faults. The miser, the swindler, the bully, the cheat, who will do you much harm merely by being near you, are within you. Change therefore to better associations. Live with the Catos, with Laelius, with Tubero. Or if you enjoy living with Greeks also, spend your time with Socrates and with Zeno. The former will show you how to die if it be necessary, the latter how to die before it is necessary. Live with Chrysippus, with Posidonius. They will make you acquainted with things earthly and things heavenly. They will bid you work hard over something more than neat turns of language and phrases mouthed forth for the entertainment of listeners. They will bid you be stout of heart and rise superior to threats. The only harbor safe from the seething storms of this life is scorn of the future, a firm stand, a readiness to receive fortune's missiles full in the breast, neither skulking nor turning the back. Nature has brought us forth brave of spirit and, as she has implanted in certain animals a spirit of ferocity, in others craft, in others terror, so she has gifted us with an aspiring and lofty spirit, which prompts us to seek a life of the greatest honor and not of the greatest security, that most resembles the soul of the universe, which it follows and imitates as far as our mortal steps permit. This spirit thrusts itself forward, confident of commendation and esteem. It is superior to all, monarch of all it surveys. Hence it should be subservient to nothing, finding no task too heavy, and nothing strong enough to weigh down the shoulders of a man. Shapes dread to look upon, of toil or death, are not in the least dreadful, if one is able to look upon them with unflinching gaze, and is able to pierce the shadows. Many a sight that is held a terror in the night time is turned to ridicule by day. Shapes dread to look upon, of toil or death. Our Virgil has excellently said that these shapes are dread, not in reality, but only to look upon. In other words, they seem terrible, but are not. And in these visions, what is there, I say, as fear-inspiring as rumor has proclaimed? Why, pray, my dear Lucilius, should a man fear toil, or a mortal death? Countless cases occur to my mind of men who think that what they themselves are unable to do is impossible, who maintain that we utter words which are too big for man's nature to carry out. But how much more highly do I think of these men? They can do these things, but decline to do them. To whom that ever tried, have these tasks proved false? To what man did they not seem easier in the doing? Our lack of confidence is not the result of difficulty. The difficulty comes from our lack of confidence. If, however, you desire a pattern, take Socrates, a long-suffering old man who was sea-tossed amid every hardship and yet was unconquered both by poverty, which his troubles at home made more burdensome, and by toil, including the drudgery of military service. He was much tried at home, whether we think of his wife, a woman of rough manners and shrewish tongue, or of the children whose intractability showed them to be more like their mother than their father. And if you consider the facts, he lived either in time of war, or under tyrants, or under a democracy which is more cruel than wars and tyrants. The war lasted for 27 years. Then the state became the victim of the 30 tyrants, of whom many were his personal enemies. At the last came that climax of condemnation under the gravest of charges. They accused him of disturbing the state religion and corrupting the youth, for they declared that he had influenced the youth to defy the gods, to defy the council, and to defy the state in general. Next came the prison and the cup of poison. But all these measures changed the soul of Socrates so little that they did not even change his features. What wonderful and rare distinction! He maintained this attitude up to the very end, and no man ever saw Socrates too much elated or too much depressed. Amid all the disturbance of fortune, he was undisturbed. Do you desire another case? Take that of the younger Marcus Cato, with whom fortune dealt in a more hostile and more persistent fashion. But he withstood her on all occasions, and in his last moments, at the point of death, showed that a brave man can live in spite of fortune, can die in spite of her. His whole life was passed either in civil warfare or under a political regime which was soon to breed civil war. And you may say that he, just as much as Socrates, declared allegiance to liberty in the midst of slavery, unless perchance you think that Pompey, Caesar, and Crassus were the allies of liberty. No one ever saw Cato change, no matter how often the state changed. He kept himself the same in all circumstances, in the praetorship, in defeat, under accusation, in his province, on the platform, in the army, in death. Furthermore, when the Republic was in a crisis of terror, when Caesar was on one side with 10 embattled legions at his call, aided by so many foreign nations, and when Pompey was on the other, satisfied to stand alone against all comers, and when the citizens were leaning towards either Caesar or Pompey, Cato alone established a definite party for the Republic. If you would obtain a mental picture of that period, you may imagine on one side the people and the whole proletariat eager for revolution, on the other the senators and knights, the chosen and honored men of the Commonwealth, and there were left between them but these two, the Republic and Cato. I tell you, you will marvel when you see Atreus' son, and Priam, and Achilles, wroth at both. Like Achilles, he scorns and disarms each faction. And this is the vote which he casts concerning them both. If Caesar wins, I slay myself. If Pompey, I go into exile. What was there for a man to fear who, whether in defeat or in victory, had assigned to himself a doom which might have been assigned to him by his enemies in their utmost rage? So he died by his own decision. You see that man can endure toil. Cato on foot led an army through African deserts. You see that thirst can be endured. He marched over sun-baked hills, dragging the remains of a beaten army and with no train of supplies, undergoing lack of water and wearing a heavy suit of armor, always the lust to drink of the few springs which they chanced to find. You see that honor and dishonor too can be despised, for they report that on the very day when Cato was defeated at the elections, he played a game of ball. You see also that man can be free from fear of those above him in rank, for Cato attacked Caesar and Pompey simultaneously at a time when none dared fall foul of the one without endeavoring to oblige the other. You see that death can be scorned as well as exile. Cato inflicted exile upon himself and finally death, and war all the while. And so, if only we are willing to withdraw our necks from the yoke, we can keep as stout a heart against such terrors as these. But first and foremost, we must reject pleasures. They render us weak and womanish. They make great demands upon us, and moreover, cause us to make great demands upon fortune. Second, we must spurn wealth. Wealth is the diploma of slavery. Abandon gold and silver, and whatever else is a burden upon our richly furnished homes. Liberty cannot be gained for nothing. If you set a high value on liberty, you must set a low value on everything else. Farewell.